Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father, work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father, work it out.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and today we have so much to dive into. We're coming a little bit earlier than we normally do. That's because today's Wednesday, and my wife and I are heading to pre-sanctified liturgy this evening, so this is about the only time I could get a stream in. And so much has been going on regarding the Iran war. We are now facing an energy crisis globally. Not only has Iran been attacking some of the oil infrastructure, energy infrastructure in the Gulf, they've also retaliated and hit Haifa, the largest refinery in Israel. Israel's bombed gas stations in Lebanon as they begin to invade and have now essentially annexed southern portions of Lebanon. Ukraine just had a very successful drone attack at the largest refinery in Russia, especially on its Baltic, there on the Black Sea. 60% of its maritime oil exports. So it sounds like they haven't totally destroyed the refinery, but they had considerable damage. And of course, Port Arthur, the largest refinery in the United States, was on fire just a couple days ago. Now, we're told it had nothing to do with terrorist attack, that there was a sensor malfunction. But we're seeing massive crisis regarding energy. It's almost as if there's a global elite that actually want there to be energy chaos around the world. It's almost like, as we'll get into the first stories today, they're setting the stage for the Great Reset, that causing an energy crisis, which we're already seeing, and I have an article talking about energy lockdowns. So lockdowns are back in the news, people. I kid you not. I kid you not. There's already articles talking about energy lockdowns in places in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. They're asking people to carpool. You can only drive on certain days of the week. And so we're seeing a return of COVID-era lockdowns in the name of this ongoing energy crisis. Again, strange that it seems like the powers that be continue to attack all this energy structure. And we even have today, before I just went live right now, Iran has actually bombed a power plant in Israel. So things are not de-escalating as Trump would want you to believe. We're going to get into the rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration is that there's potential peace negotiations. However, the IRGC has been very clear that they have no idea what Donald Trump is talking about. They are not in negotiations with the United States. It appears that the U.S. and Israel has been trying to find people to be the inserted president after this war and have been negotiating with them, but doesn't seem to be going very successful. Not that it's a huge advancement or endorsement upon Iran, but Iraq has just declared war against Israel and the United States, and the U.S. Air Force retaliated this morning by bombing, I forget what the infrastructure was, but a significant airstrike in Iraq. So things are moving along quite interestingly. Again, what I was going to say is appears to me is that we are being set up for a transition into the next stage of the New World Order, if you will. And within the past couple days, Nvidia CEO has claimed that they have reached AGI, that is artificial general intelligence. Now, I myself do not believe that sentient AI is possible because I do not believe sentience can emerge due to pattern recognition in these LLM models. Sentient from a Christian perspective is tied with a soul, and so no artificial intelligence is imbued with the image of God with a soul, and so therefore can never be truly sentient. However, Nvidia is claiming that they've reached AGI. We're seeing Citadel Capital CEO talking about how AI is essentially a more legitimate form of Jesus Christ, that this is going to be the global savior. And it's the same players that be that are moving us closer and closer to this technocratic future. And again, what are we seeing? We just saw Maduro a few months ago, right, get kidnapped by the Trump administration. What is the thing that connects Iran, Venezuela, Cuba and Russia, right? The big enemies of the West right now. Well, is it any coincidence that Cuba, Russia, Venezuela, and Iran are not on the same central banking Rothschild system? Now, Russia had been post the Soviet Union collapse, but there was reports that Putin has actually kicked the Rothschilds out of Russia. Now, I don't know how significant that is, but certainly in regards to Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, they do not have Western central banks. Is it any surprise then that these are main strategic targets for the West? I think not. I think not. So we're going to get into all that stuff. Smash that like, guys. Appreciate you stopping in. We don't usually do these morning streams, but like I said, we have pre-sanctified liturgy tonight. So we got to do it earlier, so I figured 11:30 in the morning. What better time to get your day started with all the terrible news going on around the world? But that leads me to another question I want to ask you guys. So I have been enjoying doing these drama alerts more regularly, and I've gotten so many compliments from people saying, hey, really enjoy your drama alerts, being able to catch up with the news. I don't like following the news, and I like tuning into those streams because it kind of gives me an overview of what the major topics are, geopolitics, and the events around the world. So I was thinking, yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe I should make this more of a fixture of the channel. And if I do that, I want to change the name from Drama Alert. The reason why this thing is even called Drama Alert was really just tongue-in-cheek because I think the first one we did was a lot about internet drama. And people really enjoyed that, and it included some of the more mainstream media news items. Well, I was thinking about rebranding this, and I need your guys' advice or what your suggestion. We could keep it Drama Alert. I was thinking about renaming it something like Logos News or something like that, where you can count every single week. Maybe we choose a specific day, but every single week we do a stream like this where we just cover major news items because there really isn't Orthodox channels out there that are covering news regularly. And I thought, well, that's a niche that I wouldn't mind occupying and creating more content in. So, what do you guys recommend? I'm going to post a poll here in the chat and ask you guys what you recommend. And I want to get some feedback. So, I'm going to say, what should these news streams be called? And so I'll leave the first option being Drama Alert, although it's so tied with Keemstar. People think I'm tied with Keemstar or something. No, I just did it because I thought it was a clever way to title it, and it's sort of been that way ever since. So we'll do Logos News, Drama Alert, Ortho News, or Other. And if you have an other, let me know what you think I should retitle these. Yeah, as people say, Drama Alert, it's kind of funny. Homo Global Alert. Well, let me know. I'm curious what you guys recommend I do. So I'm very much... Oh, shout out to Cleve. Cleve's in the chat. He says Drama Alert is good. Okay, I'm open to leaving it Drama Alert. Codal briefing. I like that. Codal briefing. Ortho news sounds like the news of the Orthodox world. Yeah. The goal was for me to talk about news from an Orthodox perspective, right? So covering whatever the major news articles are, whatever the major news items, geopolitical conflicts, whatever it may be, but just like we do on this channel regarding topic-themed streams, we'll do for news in general, just looking at news from an Orthodox perspective. Oh, the Byzantine brief. That's a good one. That's a good one. So it looks like people still prefer Drama Alert. So we can keep it Drama Alert. If Drama Alert's what you guys like, we'll keep it as Drama Alert. But I'm going to keep checking in on that poll. I want to see what you guys end up deciding on. The Dance Commodore throws in 100 RONs. Thank you very much. The Dance Commodore says AGI was achieved with Italian brain rot. Thanks for all your work. Well, thank you, brother. Really appreciate the support. God bless you. Blessed Lent to you. And Mudworks throws in 20. He says, most frustrating for me is that I work in the oil field for 8 years. There was never a discussion anywhere I worked about a lack of oil or natural gas in the U.S. We have enough oil, gas, coal, and farmland to last forever. Yes, we do. But as we're going to get into today with some of the news items, did you know that the largest wildfire has just occurred in Nebraska, which just coincided with the same territory in Nebraska where the majority of U.S. cattle herds are found? Strange coincidence. Strange coincidence, right? That just so happened. We're going to look into it. Massive, over 1 million acres destroyed. So all the grass that those cows would graze on, yeah, it's all burnt off. I wonder if anybody's going to come in and start buying that stuff up. 1 in 4 U.S. farmers do not have fertilizer for this year. So we're looking at a massive, a crippling situation, a significantly crippling situation for U.S. farmers right now. 1 in 4 do not have access to fertilizer. Did you know that Maui just had a, once in a lifetime flood? Remember that whole conspiracy theory about space lasers and setting Maui on fire, except for those interesting houses like Obama and Oprah's that had blue roofs? You remember those photos that everything was scorched except like blue cars and blue trash cans? Remember that weird story? And then everybody speculated that now that they destroyed half of Maui, that through wildfires, that companies were going to come in and buy up that land, which is exactly what happened, and displace the local residents. Well, guess what? The other half of Maui that fire didn't reach just got wiped out with a massive flooding. Like homes just totally washed away. Many of the people were actually living in the other half of Maui and just rebuilt a house over there, which just got totally annihilated. So sounds like the powers that be are going to have the entirety of Maui to themselves. So that's also been happening. So just absolutely craziness all over the world right now, all over the news cycle. But to your point, Mudworks, yeah, we shouldn't have. In fact, as we get into the oil crisis and the energy crisis, I mean, the U.S. is probably going to be the least devastated of the areas in the world right now. Number one, the people that are getting hit the hardest right now is Asia. Second is Europe. Europe is screwed. The fact that Ukraine then bombed a refinery in Russia, their largest, 60% of their maritime export, isn't going to help the situation for Europe at all. So is the irony? Europe is sending billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight Russia, but because Europe is dependent upon Russian energy, they're still going through loops to buy Russian energy. Again, Nord Stream got bombed. Remember that, beginning of the war. And then Ukraine bombs the refinery in Russia, making the energy crisis exacerbated even worse for Europe, who's still sending them billions of dollars. It makes no sense. The whole thing makes no sense. It just seems like the whole world's just dead set on World War III. Which, as we're going to see, Metropolitan Neophytos of Morphu has already highlighted that we began that once Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. In a sense, that ship has already sailed. So, smash that like, guys. Support the stream. If you'd like to send in a super chat using Dono Chat or Streamlabs, do appreciate that. But if you'd like to help me reach the goal of 30 super chats today over on YouTube, the grift is on. The grift is on. All right, so let's get into our first story here, and I'm going to hit you with a bunch of the tech stuff. We're going to move through some of the major items regarding tech, and this is what I wanted to say is Nvidia CEO has already announced AGI. So this was a great post that I found kind of going over. Here's Polymarket breaking. Nvidia CEO announces we've achieved AGI. That's Advanced General Intelligence. AGI is different from AI in the sense that AGI is believed to be self-aware and sentient. That's the whole difference there. And therefore, it's an autonomous entity from their perspective. Now, again, I don't even believe that it can become sentient, but this just breaks down some of the major happenings that just happened in the last few days. And he says, let me explain what just happened. Nvidia CEO just said they've reached AGI. AGI doesn't just write text or make images. AGI can think, reason, and perform any job better than an actual human. That's their claim. Now look what's happening around you. Gas is at record prices. Groceries are unaffordable. The housing market is frozen. We're in a war that cost $16 billion in 3 weeks. The market is being considered traded more than ever. Americans are being told to exercise caution everywhere on earth. Everything is falling apart for regular people. And in the middle of it, they're spending trillions on AI, data centers the size of Central Park. Every company on earth racing to deploy it as fast as possible. Your roads are crumbling. Your schools are broke. Your healthcare doesn't work. But they found unlimited money for this. Unlimited. Now ask yourself why. They're not building this to help you. Look around. Does any of this look like it's for you? They're building this to replace you. Every company that replaced workers with AI this year saw their stock go up. Every single one. The market is literally paying them to get rid of you. And today, the man who sold every chip powering all of it just told you AGI is here. This was never about innovation. This was never about making your life better. It was about building a world that doesn't need you in it anymore. The Great Reset is no longer a conspiracy. It's here. And I just want to bring this up is obviously I don't believe in the proclamations that we have sentient AI, but the point is to realize what's going on right now is somewhat planned. Now, once the war began, once the airstrikes and the bombings started, yes, there's an unpredictability about war. And we're certainly in it. It's called the fog of war, right? It's very unclear to get a full picture of the scenario. However, all this global chaos only benefits the elite. In many ways, we're seeing the continuation of the agenda that has already been in place. And I don't think it's any surprise that it's happening under Trump, right? The COVID lockdowns under Trump. We're seeing the first attacks on the Iran nuclear facilities under Trump. We're seeing Project Stargate, the $500 billion investment into AGI under Trump. We're seeing the building of technocracy under Trump. We're seeing the empowerment of Palantir under Trump. It's really not that surprising to see that under Trump, under the charade of MAGA, the globalist agenda seems to be implemented more and more every single day. Yeah, Operation Warp Speed 2.0. And so here we have the Citadel CEO, Ken Griffin, talking about how the world needs a savior. And the hope is that AI is the savior. So keep this in mind. This all just happened in the last few days. Nvidia claims they've reached AGI. This is one of the most important tech companies because of their microchips in the world, especially in the United States. And here's Citadel Capital CEO saying that, you know what, everybody needs a savior. And that savior is going to be AI. Just as we've talked about this sort of inverted Christianity, this inverted Christology. Again, if you haven't, my book is all about this. Check out Return to Babylon from Adam to Antichrist. You can get signed author copies at the website or just buy through Amazon. But this is exactly what I'm talking about in that book. And here we have CEOs saying the exact same thing.
The area of recklessness is the spending of governments around the world, who are all, with little exception, all spending well beyond their means. That's the recklessness of this moment in history. This is not a parallel to the 1920s in terms of the recklessness of the private capital markets. It's a story of the recklessness of government spending. Within the private sector, there's a huge question as to where AI will take us. And I was carefully taking notes and listening to what Larry has to say, or to what Madame Lagarde has to say, because this is one of the big issues of our moment. Will AI create the productivity acceleration that is honestly that's hoped for in Washington and in the halls of government around the world as a way to overcome the profligate spending that we're currently engaged in? Like the world needs a savior. And the hope is that AI is the savior that we need for productivity. And the challenge with this is it may or may not be. We just don't know yet.
They don't know, but they're investing all their capital and efforts into it. Next story, this is Jensen Huang says AI won't kill jobs, it will multiply them. We just went from 30 million coders to probably 1 billion. That's funny because I'm also seeing many people that I talk to that are coders, tech engineers, saying that it's actually becoming more difficult to find work. Much of the basic coding jobs AI is doing. And so it's funny that this is Jensen Huang's claim that AI will actually create more jobs when Elon Musk is saying the opposite. He's saying, and we're going to get into his new robotics, Tesla Robotics, Tesla AI is one of the leading robotics researchers in the world. And we played videos previously of Elon Musk saying that in the future, every single person will have their own Tesla robot, just like the Jetsons. They have their little robotic maid. Well, he says that's exactly what everybody is going to have in the future, and that you'll just basically have a UBI because much of labor is going to be done by robotics and AI itself. You don't even need to have a job. And so Elon Musk, the last 2 months, has been stating over and over in interviews that, hey, don't worry about money. In the future, money's not even going to matter. Somebody asked, well, why don't you give like everyone $1 million? He's like, it's not even going to matter. In the future, people won't even need money. We'll all be the same. It's ironic. You almost have $1 trillion. I think last time we looked up his net worth, what was it? Over $700 billion. $700 billion. Right? We're told there's 8 billion people on the planet. He has $700 billion. Now, that's net worth. That's not liquid capital, but still. So we have Elon Musk saying the exact opposite, that AI is going to take over the job market and you won't have to work because you'll have UBI, and that it's going to be really fun because you can do whatever you want. And then we have this guy saying the exact opposite. He's saying that, more people will just utilize AI to do their own jobs and there'll be more jobs.
It's the story, the first job that computer scientists said, AI researchers said was going to go away was radiology, because computer vision was going to achieve superhuman levels, and it did. Computer vision was superhuman in 2019, maybe a little bit later, 2020. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so it's been a long time since computer vision has been superhuman, and so the prediction was radiologists would go away because studying radiology scans was a thing of the past. AI will do that. Well, they were absolutely right. Computer vision is completely superhuman. Every radiology platform and package today is driven by AI. And yet, the number of radiologists grew. And so the question is why? And we now have a shortage of radiologists in the world. And so, one, the alarmist warning went too far and it scared people from doing this profession that is so important to society. And so it did harm. Now, why was it wrong? The reason why is because the purpose of a radiologist, the purpose is to diagnose disease and help patients and doctors diagnose disease. And because we're able to study scans so much faster now, you could study more scans, you could diagnose better, you could inpatient faster, we can see people more. The hospitals are making more money. You have more patients in the hospital. You need more radiologists. I mean, the amazing thing is, it's so obvious this was going to happen. The number of software engineers at Nvidia is going to grow, not decline. And the reason for that is because the purpose of a software engineer and the task of a software engineer of coding are related, not the same. I wanted my software engineers to solve problems. I didn't care how many lines of code they wrote, but their purpose of their job didn't change. Solving problems, working as a team, diagnose.
See, here's the problem with his analogy, though. Okay, so I don't care if my engineers, how long it takes for them to get code. I just want it to be right. So if they utilize AI tools, that's fine. Okay, great. But have you guys been following Claude, OpenClaw, these new AI bots, these worker bots that you can basically Claude, it literally will get access to your computer, can open programs. I thought of it. I was watching a commercial for it, like an advertisement for it, people saying how great it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the last thing I want. Basically, you give it full access to your computer and you can text Claude, be like, hey, I'm running late for my meeting. Send the PDF file or take my Word document, save it as a PDF file and send it to my email. And then you'll see all the operations begin on your computer as the AI is doing. It looks like a ghost in the machine. And I'm thinking, wait, so people are just voluntarily allowing Claude AI total access to everything on their databases, everything in their computers, everything on their hard drives? Seems a bit dangerous to me, especially when we find out that these tools are being used to extract blackmail. Palantir's creating data packets on every single one of us. We're being told that Robert Kraft, the New England Patriots owner, is utilizing their stadium for the Anti-Semitism Act, in which they are monitoring all social media in the United States and creating accounts of anybody who posts things that are anti-Semitic, using AI to do that, partnering with Palantir, partnering with the ADL, partnering with many of these tech companies. So if, in his example, why wouldn't the engineer, why would you still need to hire multiple coders? So he's saying, well, AI is going to create more and more jobs. Okay, well, in your own example, you just said you don't care if the engineer actually does the code himself or uses an AI. Well, with Claude, with OpenClaw, with all these different things, they can just have, one person could run, unlimited amount of AI systems doing code. That means you're not going to be hiring tons and tons of coders. You're not going to be hiring tons and tons of engineers when they can literally implement the AI to do that labor for them. So I don't even get his argument, but this is the AI optimism side, that somehow everything's going to get better. And that's why I put this one right after this guy claiming we need a savior. Well, in light of all this stuff, Donald Trump, just as we talked about with Project Stargate and all this different stuff, is now pushing forward for 6G to be used for 3D spatial penetrative surveillance. Were you worried about your privacy before? Well, now Trump talks about cellular signals in 5G and upcoming 6G being used for 3D spatial penetrative surveillance that can see through skin and walls. While the internet is still scrambling, trying to figure out whether to trust the plan, Trump is already talking about how 6G is going to spy on you. Would you like a side of Palantir with that? Listen to this.
So we're into 6G now. I just 5G. I was a leader on 5G, getting that done, and now they're up to 6.
Let's do it again.
What does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin? See how perfect it is? I like the cameras the old days. So they just had a nice feature. Now they cover every little. Let's see, Michael, you're in good shape. You're not gonna. But I tell you, it's the 6 is coming, huh? So we're into 6.
So, as usual, the Trump administration is trusting the plan means trusting the globalist elite and allowing 6G, the next pandemic, possibly. Who knows? So that's happening. In addition, Trump is to appoint everyone's favorite, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, check those early life checks, Jensen Huang, to the Science and Technology Advisory Board. Yes, I really want Larry Ellison Jensen Huang and Mark Zuckerberg to be the voice of America regarding tech. I'm sure they're not biased at all. And here is Greenblatt of the ADL telling you that they are using AI to scan your social media and forward it and flag it. Now, remember, this is tied with, as I said, Robert Kraft's initiative. He was behind the whole Blue Square movement during the Super Bowl. You saw, basically trying to do the George Floyd Black Lives Matter Black Square. Now they're doing Jewish Lives Matter, and you post a blue square. And he works with this. So the ADL, and this is where they're creating a database of Americans who are anti-Semitic. Here is him talking about the monitoring of that using AI.
Within these pillars, protect, advocate, educate, we are innovating. We are trying new ways to have an impact in the fight against anti-Semitism. So let's talk about what that looks like. Within the first pillar, protect, not only has the team at the Center on Extremism expanded its ranks with data scientists and software engineers, but we use cutting-edge AI tools to analyze the endless online chatter. And then, when we identify salient trends or material threats, we route them to whomever may need it. Could be journalists, policymakers, and very often law enforcement. Now, I can't talk about all the times we do that. I can't divulge what's happened with every piece of intelligence shared, but just know there are real dangers that have been averted. Serious bad guys that have been put behind bars all over the world. And the information generated by Oren Siegel and the entire team on the Center on Extremism, it makes our communities safer.
So they want to put people in jail for being anti-Semitic, right? Well, I got to bring this one over here and show you the fact that they are, in fact, arresting people for quote-unquote anti-Semitism. So this was major news. You guys, we covered it previously about the terrorist attack on the synagogue in Michigan. And interestingly enough, 2 weeks before, the FBI did preparatory work in the potential case and the exact type of terrorist attack occurred. Anyways, this guy right here, Wisconsin Sheriff Michael Bouchard, confirmed that a man was arrested after distributing an offensive internet meme depicting him with a Jewish star on his forehead, calling it anti-Semitic. The sheriff said the man was, quote, trying to threaten and intimidate him by posting the meme. He said the First Amendment makes people feel empowered, emboldened, and safe, so he had to teach the public a lesson. Now, mind you, this is a sheriff, meaning he is voted into office. He is a public representative. The First Amendment explicitly states that Americans have the right to mock, joke, make fun of, whatever opinion they may have of the individual. They're allowed to air that publicly. And he actually arrested a man for this.
Just by way of example, some pond scum felt empowered and emboldened enough to put this picture of me up.
So anybody listening to this podcast in the future, what we're looking at right now is the sheriff with the long Jewish braids on the side of his head with a yarmulke and a Star of David on his forehead. That's it. That's it. And this was enough for the sheriff to go arrest the man for its intimidating and inciting violence against him for a meme, for an elected official.
To try to threaten and intimidate me, which of course he didn't do because I signed up for this.
Clearly he did, or you wouldn't have arrested him.
And by the way, the person that did this said a bunch of terrible things, not just against me, but against a lot of groups and individuals, who, by the way, was arrested today in Wisconsin. My point is this, though. If this person is emboldened and empowered enough or feels safe enough to do this for me, what does he do to a kid?
To a kid? Dude, he made a meme of you. He added some hair and a Star of David on your forehead. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What he would do to a kid? The guy wasn't a pedo. He made fun of you. What? What? But my point is, look at what Greenblatt just said about the ADL. Look at all the anti-Semitism laws that are being passed. Look at the cracking down on free speech regarding criticism of Israel in the Iran war. And look at the sheriff of Wisconsin arresting a man for posting a meme of him. A meme.
What does he do to a Jewish family walking down the street?
Probably nothing. What does the meme have to do with him like just violently beating a Jewish family? What?
And that's because of the normalization of this. Watching this on television and saying, okay, I feel empowered enough that I can do this. Well, A, you can't. And B, if you think...
You can't. You can't make memes? Do you guys remember when the guy made a meme for Hillary Clinton voters about stating the wrong day of the election as a total joke and then got arrested for that? We're getting very similar vibes here. But this is even worse. He's able to be arrested for a meme in the hope of preventing potential hate and violence against groups and people. What? What? When was this the way the justice system worked?
Think you can do it to somebody that's in law enforcement, again, what are you going to do in an alley or in a street to a Jewish family or a kid walking down the street? We say no. We're drawing the line.
So that's happening. And then here is Tesla's new robo-van. So as I said, Tesla is leading, if not the entire world, one of the leaders in the world regarding robotics. Probably the leader within the United States for sure. This is their new van that they just came out with. And it can transport up to 20 people. There's no driver. It's totally autonomous. Looks very much like some futuristic cable car or something like that. So that just came out, yesterday, 2 days ago? And then this was today, Elon posting about Optimus, their Tesla robotics, and this commercial about all these guys and gals working on Tesla robotics and how they are pioneering for the future. So this stuff is coming. It's coming quite quickly, actually. Now, regarding other news in the United States, this is huge. Hawaii got hit with a devastating flood. Worst flooding in 20 years. 4 feet of rain on Oahu and Maui. Homes destroyed. Roads washed out completely. 4 feet of rain is an ocean falling from the sky. And so you can see here, I'm going to play it. Some of these people were actually displaced from the fire in Maui a few years ago, just got settled on the other part of Maui and got their homes totally washed out. Now, just like what happened in Maui previously, I suspect that these people won't be able to move back to their homes and build, just like we're seeing in the Palisades in California and LA, just like we saw in Maui before it. I imagine the exact same thing's going to happen here.
That historic deluge over the past week has turned some of Hawaii's emerald communities into wastelands of mud. Parts of Oahu and Maui were battered by a pair of massive storms, which the governor said had unleashed up to 4 feet of rain in certain areas. It caused the worst flooding in 20 years, blasting down riverbeds, blowing out bridges and roads, and swallowing cars, even trucks.
There's 35 years on the North Shore. This is heavy.
Thousands were forced from their homes.
People that I work with, they lost their whole house. You know, there's this one young man, 8 people live in the house, and it's gone.
And among those displaced, actor Jason Momoa.
We got out of the North Shore, and a lot of people have been asking. Power went off. We're safe now.
And across Hawaii, more than 200 people were rescued from homes and cars. In northern Oahu, members of the National Guard trudged through waist-deep water to help stranded drivers and mud-bound homeowners. Melanie Lee saw what's left of her house for the first time.
We've been here almost 20 years. We lost everything. My children's, pictures, just real sentimental stuff. Now it's like, now where we go from here.
In Maui, the flooding comes as the community continues to recover from the devastating fires there 2 years ago.
And we know for so many people, the fires are one thing, and now to have flooding, and in some cases, their homes that they had just moved into, it can feel overwhelming.
Tony, the evacuation orders have been lifted, and the governor of Hawaii said that this disaster fortunately did not kill anyone, but he estimates that a year's worth of rain in just a few days likely caused about $1 billion in damage. Tony, Matt,
So pray for the people of Maui. That's just devastating, especially for those that were affected by the fire, just got resettled and got their new home obliterated by this flood. I mean, Lord have mercy. My heart truly goes out to those people. And then the next one, the other major story happening in the United States is the massive fire that's going on in Nebraska. This wildfire at this point was 900,000. It's now over 1 million acres. 1 million acres. Largest wildfire in state history. Ranchers losing everything at the worst possible time as the Iran war stirs fear of global food shortages. And this area in Nebraska is where the majority of the U.S. cattle herds are. Now, they're all over the United States, Texas, but it's here in Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the top cattle states in the union. So this is going to absolutely hamper meat production, beef production this year. You can see the wildfires. I talked with some members of the Logos Academy last night. We had a meeting on the Orthodox Survival course. We got into the protocol of the Elders of Zion, Bolshevism, Hitler, all types of topics last night in our reading. But one of them was a truck driver, and he says he's been passing through Nebraska for like the last week and has been able to see the smoke in these wildfires. So really sad what's happening. Before we dive into this next one, let me catch up on your guys' comments. Aiden Clark throws in $2, says the Codal perspective. I appreciate that. That's a suggestion for a potential rebranding of the drama alerts. I would prefer not to be associated with Keemstar. People keep thinking that somehow it's a connection. No. So I was thinking about rebranding it. When looking at the poll, it looks like Logos News has the majority of the votes, which is kind of what I was leading towards. I mean, I got Logos Academy, Logos Academic Press, Church of the Eternal Logos. I thought Logos News would kind of fit with the brand, so that's kind of what I was leaning towards. I'm glad that most of you guys agreed. But I'll keep that in mind, Aiden. Appreciate the suggestion. Oh, my brother Wicked Wally. Shout out to you, Wally. Throws in 5, says, I needed an icon of Saint Paraskeva for Millie for her chrismation gift, and Orthodox Depot is sold out because I got the last one. Glory to God, Wally. That's great, man. You're able to find it. And God bless you and Millie. That is so exciting that you guys are going to be brought into the church together and start your lives together. I'm just so happy for you, man. God bless you both. Wish you the absolute best. And Kettle Foros throws in 20. Thank you very much. He says, here's a 20 to fix your squeaky chair. I don't have a squeaky chair. It's actually the arm, the metal arm that holds my microphone. So it probably needs some WD-40, but I was just going to buy a new mount. I've had this since 2019, so I think I'm just going to buy a total new mount. I may do that today, but it's because of the springs. I can't show you, but there's springs on this thing, and it squeaks. But my chair's plastic. It's not my chair. But I do appreciate it. I will take that $20 and buy a new microphone mount. So I apologize if that has been hampering your guys' listening abilities to the stream. I did not realize it was that noticeable. B. Sirach gifted a Kotal Crew membership. Thank you so much, B. Sirach. I really appreciate that, my man. And if anybody else is feeling generous, do gift some Kotal Crew memberships. Would greatly appreciate that. And it keeps you from watching ads. I don't know if you saw, but YouTube, if you're a channel member, you won't be given the ads during live streams. Technician TV throws in 5 on Dono Chat. Says, you're a great streamer. One of the most authentic and intelligent I've seen. Keep it up. Well, thank you so much, Technician TV. Those were really kind words. I really appreciate that. God bless you. And over on Streamlabs, Nope Men throws in 5, says, pay your tithes, pay piggies. He said, God bless you all. Well, thank you so much, Nope Men. Really appreciate the support. And thank you for your generous tithe. Snagglebees throws in 5, says, prayers for my sister. She flew to England last night, and she's visiting friends in the area. She won't be in the big city, but the world is a perilous place. Yes, it is a perilous place. What's her name, Snagglebeast? We need a name to pray for. So if Snagglebeast posts her name in the chat, somebody remind me, we can say a prayer for her. Everybody who chooses to. So anyways, thank you very much, guys, for that. Let's continue forward here. This, really not huge news. I was just kind of stunned by it, and it shows, again, I'm not a European. Anybody who is a European, lives in Europe out there, feel free to chime in. Oh, it's Rachel. Thank you, Snagglebees. So his sister's name's Rachel. This is a video coming out of Belgium, in which the government-funded radio hosts in Belgium destroy a statue of Christ with a hammer, and then when asked, say that they wouldn't do the same to a Muhammad statue or a Star of David statue because it's inappropriate. So it's inappropriate to defame Islamic or Jewish religious symbols, but smashing to pieces an image of Jesus Christ is totally okay. Listen to this.
I saw on one part you had a statue of Jesus. Now, I know you laugh, but do you think that for many listeners, they would find that so deeply offensive to take a bat and to smash Jesus into pieces?
Wasn't it Madonna, by the way? No, it was... No.
There was one, I think, of Madonna, the Madonna and the child, and there was one of Jesus.
So that's a very good question, because I think it might offend people. I think in Belgium, not really. We're not a very religious country.
Anymore.
Definitely not the listeners of Studio Brussels, but what we did, all the things we smashed, we made it very clear as well that these were all things that were already broken. So the statue, it was turned face towards the back of the room, so you wouldn't see the face as well, because it was a broken statue as well. But I think I would have been more careful in another country, definitely. In Belgium, it is not a big issue.
Let me ask you this, if you were doing the video again, would you smash a symbol of the Prophet Muhammad?
That is a very dangerous one.
You wouldn't do it. Why not?
No, because that would be inappropriate, because in Belgium there are many...
But there are Christians too. I know the Pope visited Belgium recently.
No, I know there are Christians, but it's... since we are all from the Christian tradition, I think it's like laughing with your...
They just said we're not religious, but now they're claiming that they're part of the Christian tradition, so it's okay if they demonically destroy images of the incarnate God.
Self. Or like...
But you would never do it with Muhammad?
No.
Star of David for Judaism?
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
No.
Interesting, right? Interesting. So I just assume this is kind of the sentiments of many of the progressives in Europe, but it's so in your face. It's so in your face. Next story. Now, this is pretty interesting. We're not here to promote Catholicism, but it's kind of indicative of the general trends we're seeing in traditional forms of Christianity. Catholic converts in the U.S. reached a near 20-year high, with Catholics on track to become the largest single religious group, surpassing American evangelical Protestants. Protestants as a whole will likely still outnumber Catholics, but the trend suggests the U.S. may be entering a new era of religious leadership. Now, I don't know about religious leadership, but remember when we looked at the age demographics of the various traditions? Still, Catholicism, the average age is much older than Orthodox. So, in regards to all of the Christian denomination, we're going to use that language, it's Orthodoxy that is actually growing at a higher per capita rate, and we have a lower average age of attendance, only paralleled by Islam and Hinduism. So that article that we showed last time, the expectation that in the future there's going to be more and more Orthodox because we actually have a thriving congregation and community. But this is pretty interesting. The fact that so many Protestants are actually converting to Catholicism and is totally shifting the steady decline of Catholicism. I mean, look, from the year 2000 to the year 2020, it was on a precipitous decline every single year. And then 2021 up to 2025 has been on a precipitous incline. So I think this is just indicative of the general trends that we're already witnessing. But I thought it was worthwhile because Protestantism in general is going to die out. It is the oldest of the denominations. They're congregated basically in 20 years. Many of these congregations won't even exist. They don't have enough people. They certainly don't have enough young people. Just for a little bit of infuriating American news, a black man invades a white home, murders a 6-year-old, stabs 4 others, receives an early release in the state of Kentucky. White girl gets drunk and says no word. She said the N-word multiple times, and she was denied early release. So she had no priors, never been arrested, never been charged with any crime or gotten into trouble in any way, but she was on camera saying the N-word when she was drunk, got arrested for it, denied early release, yet this man who killed a child and stabbed 4 other people got out after 9 years for good behavior. So that is just a little example of the American justice system that we live in now. And it's not just America. Here is a Swedish court ruled that an Eritrean migrant who raped a 16-year-old won't be deported. Get this, because the rape didn't last long enough. Wrap your head around that one. Wrap your head around that one. The Swedish court said the rape didn't last long enough for the rapist to be deported. Wow. Wow. Here is Senator Chris Murphy saying the people we care about the most, the undocumented migrants. He actually said it.
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to get Ukraine funding, right?
Well, I mean, Chris, that's been a failed play for 20 years. So you are right that that has been the Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe. And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to...
You guys see Jim Bob's comment? He said, does that mean if I'm a really quick thief, then I'm good? Yeah, basically. I think what it means, if you're a 6-second man, you can just go ahead and insert, finish, and pull out, and according to Swedish law, as long as you didn't penetrate long enough, as long as you didn't reach the threshold of what they would consider rape, you're good to go. You're good to go. So as long as you're quick with it, you know, you're free to go. There's no such thing as rape if you only do it for 6 seconds or so. So good news for all you guys out there. Jewish leaders and MPs unite to launch record UK refugee Shabbat. I mean, if the stereotypes weren't bad enough, they're not really helping their case, are they? They're not really helping their case. The UK in particular is facing an absolute demographic crisis. I don't know if you guys saw the latest numbers is that there's 46 million plus Muslims in Europe. 46 million, guys. There's only 80 million people in Germany. 46 million Muslims in Europe. And Jewish leaders state that the MPs must launch a refugee Shabbat. I'm sure all the refugees are excited to attend. Breaking: Israeli tech found in Russian military boot insoles. This was big news. So you can see here, Russia discovers hundreds of booby-trapped boot insoles rigged with explosives to blow soldiers' legs off. So Russia has impounded hundreds of booby-trapped boots insoles intended for Vladimir Putin's foot soldiers, say the Federal Security Service, FSB. Pretty wild. Now, we don't know exactly if it's Israeli tech. That is not the official report. We don't know. It's believed that they were packaged and put together in some of these Western European nations and were sent, from what one article I was reading, they were sent as humanitarian aid and providing boot inserts, and then it was found that they all were rigged with explosives. So Russia's pretty pissed right now. Wait till we get into their refinery. I wouldn't be surprised if Russia absolutely obliterates Ukraine. I mean, wait till we get into the oil crisis. Here, even Alex Jones is beginning to notice more and more. Alex Jones posted, this is today. He says, this is total insanity. We have Epstein's lawyer telling us that anyone questioning the Iran war is leading a Nazi coup against America. Alan Dershowitz on Joe Kent. We're seeing an attempted coup within the Republican Party by neo-Nazi fascists led by Kent. And then also by Tucker Carlson, by Nick Fuentes, and Candace Owens. Tucker Carlson is leading a Nazi fascist coup against the GOP. Amazing. President Trump said these people are not MAGA. This has been the major talking point amongst all the Zionists ever since Joe Kent's resignation and his position as National Counterterrorist Center Director, highlighting that, actually there's a lot of connections that go back to Israel, and he was prevented from investigating them, both the Charlie Kirk assassination and the Thomas Crooks attempted assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania. And now we're hearing, once Joe Kent resigned, that everybody says, well, if you're not with Trump, you're not MAGA. You're not MAGA, right? He denounced Tucker Carlson as no longer part of MAGA. Well, I think the people that are critical really don't care about being part of MAGA anymore, okay? This really isn't the browbeater that they think it is. And so here's the notorious pedo himself, Alan Dershowitz, who famously said just like a month ago on Piers Morgan, well, if Jeffrey Epstein told me he worked for Mossad, I would have got him out scot-free, admitting that, he didn't work for Mossad because I would have made sure. Well, actually, according to even Joe Kent, he said, without even declassifying classified information, said, yeah, it's a fact that we know Epstein worked with Israel and Mossad, which everybody knew. That's no breaking news. But here's Alan Dershowitz.
We're seeing an attempted coup within the Republican Party by neo-Nazi fascists, led by Kemp, who is a clear neo-Nazi fascist.
A clear neo-Nazi fascist. The guy is like a milquetoast conservative who's right of center, 11 tours in Iraq. His wife died in Syria, also in the military. And he's a neo-Nazi fascist, clearly a neo-Nazi fascist, because he had the gall to say that this war is an Israeli war.
And then also by Tucker Carlson, by Fuentes, by Owens, we're seeing an attempt by these neo-Nazis to take over the Republican Party. Fortunately, good Republicans, headed by President Trump, are stopping it. And President Trump said, these people are not MAGA. These people are not my people. But they're trying to take over the Republican Party. And Kent blames Jews for everything. You know, he blamed the Jews for the Iraq war. Israel...
Who told us that there was weapons of mass destruction? If my memory serves me correctly, that was Benjamin Netanyahu giving testimony to Congress. if my memory serves me correctly, it was many of the Zionists that were adamant about the war in the first place. So yeah, given Netanyahu's role, I think it's fair to say that Israel very much got us into the war with Iraq, because why did we go after Saddam? I didn't know that there was any Iraqi terrorist in 9/11.
Was against the Iraq war. I know because I spoke to Prime Minister Sharon. He spoke to President.
I know because I spoke to the Israeli Prime Minister.
Bush, and urged him not to go into Iraq. But according to Kent, anything that was bad had to be the Jews. This has to end. The Republican Party has to disassociate itself from its fascist neo-Nazi wing, which is growing within the Republican Party, particularly among young people. And it's a real threat to America, to democracy, to American Jews, to Israel, and to American values. And we have to put an end to it now.
Everybody knows that American values are support for Israel. It's a real devastation of American values. Here's a little funny comment that the Israeli ambassador to the UN just said. Now, remember, Israel's been violating all the UN requests for the genocide, ending the genocide against the Palestinians. You know, now they're annexing, invading Lebanon, specifically attacking Christian areas in southern Lebanon. The most violent, the most destabilizing force in the Middle East has been Israel since 1948. A reporter asked, why does Israel have the right to nukes, but no other Middle East country has the same right? And he responds, we're a stabilizing force in the region. We want peace. Which is also a soft admission that they do, in fact, have nukes, right? We've been told that they don't have nukes, or they've never fully declared. And it all ties back to JFK, the assassination, what was going on during the early 1960s. But here's his response here.
Sir, everyone knows that Israel is a nuclear power. If you say no, Fa'nunu, who fled Israel to London, and he gave that important interview with the Times of London, and he was kidnapped back to Israel and was arrested for 18 years. Why Israel has the right to acquire nuclear weapons, but no other Middle Eastern countries has that same right? Thank you.
One should ask himself about every nation who is bringing stabilization to the area and who is bringing chaos. Israel is a stabilizing force in the region. We want peace. Allow me to answer that. We sign peace treaties, we promote peace, we pray for peace. When you look at the Iranian...
Peace is just a filler term for getting exactly what they want so they'll stop attacking you.
Regime, they are doing exactly the opposite. They have attacked 13 countries in 1 month. You know, Israel exists for 77 years. We never had war with 13 countries combined. So today you understand that Iran is a problem for instability and Israel is a source for peace and stability.
So in other words, Israel made sure that 7 other nations were going to declare war against Iran due to their own propaganda and their own initiatives, and that makes them better than Iran, apparently. Next story. Spaniard MP demands to Prime Minister Sanchez to abandon NATO. This is the moment to be first to propose leaving NATO. We have witnessed a genocide against the Palestinian people being justified and broadcast to the public with complete impunity. So they're requesting to leave NATO because NATO backs Israel, and Israel is a genocidal nation. So again, we're seeing sentiments towards Israel dramatically change. It's not just young people in the United States, it's all across the world. Turkey is pushing hard behind the scenes to stop Gulf countries from joining the conflict. Hakan, Turkey's FM, and one of its top power players, has been traveling across Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar to push restraint. He's a key figure in Ankara's strategy, known for running intelligence and diplomacy at the highest level. So interesting that we're seeing, again, Turkey engaging in this whole conflict, again, recognizing that this is truly a world war. Now, this is disheartening for all my Greek Orthodox brothers and sisters out there. This is an article that was going around, and this isn't just the only news. Multiple, if you go put this up, you'll find multiple articles of Israel and Jews requesting to purchase up to 40 islands in Greece to be refugees for Jews. Refugee islands, essentially. A representative of the Israel Defense Ministers Party has proposed Israel purchase islands in Greece for the good of the Jewish people. Avri Steiner, a board member of the Jewish National Fund, proposed the purchasing Greek islands as an emergency safe haven for Jews and claims a framework could be created with the Greek government to eventually transfer full sovereignty of multiple islands to the Jews. Don't forget Patagonia. We got more on that. I got a story coming out of Argentina. Here is New York Times getting community noted by Grok. It says, breaking news, Israel said it planned to expand the territory it controls in Lebanon, suggesting it might remain there beyond the fighting. And Grok says, that's called an invasion. And that's exactly what they're doing. They've invaded all the way to the Jitani River. The Jitani River is a southern river in Lebanon. Below that is historically all Christian area. Remember, Lebanon used to be a Christian nation. 80% of their Christian population has either been killed or has migrated out of Lebanon. And New York Times actually gets fact-checked for their refusal to actually state what is going on. It's an invasion, and it's an annexing of other territory of another sovereign nation. That's what Israel's doing. And here is Jeremy Boring, the failed former CEO of Daily Wire, who was fired due to his incompetence and the total annihilation of the Daily Wire brand. It basically carries no weight in American politics anymore. And he's created a new podcast for himself. He recently had Dennis Prager on as a guest, and they admit that they aren't America first and denounce Americans for being only loyal to America and imply that they should be loyal to Israel. This is literally what they're going to talk about, stating, and Dennis Prager is going to bring it up, stating that it's really sad that he's hearing Americans say that they're only loyal to America. Now, let that sink in. How is it nefarious for people of a nation to say that they're only loyal to that nation? I can't imagine at any point in history that phrase would be uttered and they would assume that people would hear it and think, yeah, that's right. That's right. Russians shouldn't just be loyal to Russia. They should be loyal to Germany as well and the UK. What?
Just yesterday, he said that his only loyalty. Now notice, he used the word only. His only not first. His only loyalty is to the American people.
How is that a negative comment?
Why is that noble?
Because those are my people. Those are my nation folk. Those are the people I share my nation with. It makes sense to just be loyal to those people, given that's where we're from.
Why is that Christian? That's your only loyalty? I just don't get it. It's a tribal-based morality that I don't relate to.
It's not even a truthful statement. I mean, I don't know Tucker Carlson on a personal level. As an observer, though, he certainly has other loyalties than just to the American people. He's expressed additional loyalties. He's said he has loyalty to the United States, which presumably is different than the people. He's obviously got loyalty to his family, one would assume, to his brother very publicly, very obviously. I know people who've worked for him, both at Fox and at his network. When he first started the Tucker Carlson network, he hired a bunch of Daily Wire and former Daily Wire employees, and by all accounts, He shows great loyalty to the people who work for him. So it's not his only loyalty, and I don't know why it would be good if it were his only loyalty. Like you, I'm not even altogether sure what that means or why it would be virtuous for that to be your only loyalty.
Do they know what a traitor is? A traitor is a term for someone who has taken a loyalty to one nation, but then secretly has loyalty to another nation and works against the nation that they originally claimed loyalty to. That is called a traitor. That is why it is virtuous to be loyal to the nation in which you are from. I didn't know this was complicated.
But presumably one wouldn't say it unless they at least thought that it sounds like something that would be good if it were true. I don't even think it would be good if it were true, and it very plainly isn't.
Well, isn't that the same as saying my country, right or wrong? I gave a brief statement to the PragerU team.
Okay, I can't listen to Dennis Prager talk anymore. You know, unfortunately, he had a major health crisis. I know he was in the hospital. He was bedridden for a long time. Now he's very slow speaking. But this is just asinine. Absolute asinine that they're complaining that Tucker Carlson said that he has only has loyalty to the United States. Here is Josh Hammer. And so we know that the attacks are on Joe Kent, right? For him outing the fact that Israel's behind this war. We know that to be the case. Well, now we're seeing the Zionists ramp up attacks against Tulsi Gabbard, who actually has not made any critical comments against Israel, right? She's been very much of a soft-spoken person in the Trump administration. We rarely hear from her. We're told, though, Joe Kent made a comment that he and Tulsi Gabbard were very close friends. Given the fact of Joe Kent's criticisms of Israel, and accurate criticisms, we're seeing now the Zionists try to levy and create propaganda regarding Tulsi Gabbard. And so Josh Hammer says anonymous sources have informed him that Tulsi Gabbard is running a shadow operation that he views as anti-Semitic.
Gabbard, who is the director of national intelligence, and she was Joe Kent's boss as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. He worked under Tulsi Gabbard. I was told by numerous people who are very much part of the conservative ecosystem in D.C., these are well-sourced people, strong connections to the White House. They told me to be strongly on the lookout for Tulsi Gabbard and her office. They basically said that Tulsi Gabbard is running something of a shadow operation from her office, that she is personally, I was told this, I've met Tulsi, I don't know her well. I was told she's personally actually very anti-Semitic, and that she is heavily involved in a lot of the anti-Semitic influencer operations, and that she is potentially involved when it comes to trying to feed some of these narratives there. Now, I didn't put two and two together at the time and think that this trail led immediately to Joe Kent. I've known of Joe Kent for years. We follow each other on Twitter for forever. I knew that he had some isolationist-y leaning views on foreign policy, even nothing particularly extreme. He actually, up until yesterday or a year ago, whatever, was somewhat sober, at least, on issues pertaining to the Middle East, Iran, Israel, you name it, though. So I didn't put two and two together at the time that it immediately went to Joe Kent, but especially after his disgusting anti-Semitic dripping with the anti-Semitism conspiracy-laden resignation letter, Aaron, I am not surprised that here is where we are at when it comes to trying to figure out who it was. And indeed, it does seem, as Andrew on his show said, that it was Joe Kent leaking.
So what is the dripping anti-Semitism that Joe Kent said? Well, we read his resignation letter. He basically said that he can't support the war with Iran because it's a war on behalf of Israel, and he doesn't want to see American men and women die for Israel. That's it. That is it. All of this outrage regarding Joe Kent has to do with that one comment, that this is Israel's war, and they cannot stand it. Here's ADL CEO Greenblatt again saying Jews are victims of discrimination in the business world. Yeah. You know how they're overrepresented in news media, banking, Hollywood, even owning NFL teams, major sports teams. I mean, totally disproportional to their percentage of the U.S. population. But somehow, according to Greenblatt, they're actually discriminated against in the business world. Not white, straight, Christian men who, despite having a better resume and skill set than the competitors, can't seem to find a job. It's the Jews.
Very data-driven and research-oriented. Our research has found that we looked at the issue of employment discrimination. We found that Jewish American job candidates needed to apply 24% more applications, or file 20% more applications to receive the same number of responses from prospective employers as Americans with, let's say, Western European backgrounds or non-Jewish sounding
So that's
names.
not even just to get the job. That's just to get a response.
Callback. To get an email or a callback. They had 24% more. By the way, individuals with Israeli sounding names, nearly 40% more. So employers, big business, has a role to play, just making sure their hiring practices aren't, intentionally or unintentionally poisoned by prejudice. They're very data-driven.
So I just thought that was newsworthy for everyone to hear. And then here's Senator Ted Cruz recently did an interview on trigonometry, the kind of progressive, left of center, the two interviewees from Britain that, one is of Russian Jewish heritage, the other one is British, but they always like to attack the right wing and all this different stuff. Again, very milquetoast type channel. This is a section of an interview that Ted Cruz just did, talking about the new governments that are going to emerge in Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba. And as I said, what is the connecting tissue between Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba? Well, they don't have Rothschild central banks. That's a big one. So it's easy to see who is leading the American military-industrial complex. Total Gravity throws in 10, says, and by peace, they mean a piece of everything. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Total Gravity, for the support. God bless you. Akathis throws in 5, says, if you don't help DPH reach his goal, you support Israel. That's true. That's true. You see, Jews and Muslims don't eat pork. Over here, you have the opportunity to be a pay piggy. Pay piggies are hated by the Jews and the Muslims. And so for an easy way to demonstrate your loyalty in the war against Christ is to just be a pay piggy here for Church of the Eternal Logos. Over on Dono Chat, thank you to Octavian. Throws in 10, says, for continuously sowing the seeds of new Byzantium. Well, thank you so much, Octavian. God bless you. And Brendan throws in 5, says, some orthos are way more, quote, liberal than I thought. Still believe and support democracy and the melting pot idea. Yeah, it's sad. Then thinking about getting a blessing for apologetics. Yeah, no, I hear you, Brendan. I hear you. Okay, so let's listen to Ted Cruz talk about the goals of the U.S. empire here regarding Cuba, Venezuela, and Iran.
We're at an interesting moment in time because there is a very real possibility in the next 6 months we could see new governments in Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba. And if we end up with governments in those 3 countries that want to be friends with America rather than are enemies with America, that would be the biggest geopolitical shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Now let me be clear.
Now, have they truly been enemies of America, or are they not under central bank control? Which one is it, Ted? I'm confused. Or is this the omission? Is the omission is that they're antagonistic to America because they're not under central bank control?
There are 1,000 ways that can go wrong. I'm not being Pollyannish and saying, oh, everything's wonderful. But on any objective level, the regimes there are weaker than they have been in our lifetimes. We're at an interesting moment in time.
So business as usual for the American military-industrial complex, regime change, continual war. Only 20 years in the history of America were we not at war. Imagine that. Imagine that. Only 20 years in the history of America were we not engaged in any type of military conflict. Our nation is built upon continual and perpetual war. It's really sad. And then, I don't know if you guys saw, but Mark Levin ended up hosting Joe Kent on the Mark Levin show, and he gets totally humiliated. So he hosts Joe Kent because, as I said, all these Zionists, right, they're attacking Joe Kent because he criticized the Iran war as being part of Israel, right? So what happens? Mark Levin asked Joe Kent a week before his resignation to come on his show because Mark Levin liked Joe Kent. Then Joe Kent resigned based on him blaming Israel. Mark Levin began attacking Joe Kent and saying that this is the reason why I didn't have him on the show. Of course, Grok then highlights the fact that no, Joe actually accepted to be on your show. You never followed through. So then out of public pressure, Mark Levin invites Joe Kent onto his show for a second time, of which Joe Kent agreed. And it was a 30-minute segment. The first 20 minutes, Joe Kent is there. He doesn't even say a word. Mark Levin has him muted and does a 20-minute monologue on why Joe Kent is wrong and why he's bad. And then he gives him like 5 minutes of actual discussion time. Here is a brief little clip of that interaction, of which Joe Kent is so calm. And I'm not even here to promote Joe Kent. He seems like he seems soft on certain issues that I would like for him to be a little bit stronger on. But regarding Israel, he's been spot on. He's been a great voice of truth. And he was so calm in this interview, and you can hear Mark Levin getting so upset and calling him a conspiracy theorist, and oh my gosh, you're anti-Semitic. And he's like, well, responds very cordially and gives a reason for why he thinks something. And here's a quick little 2-minute, 59-second clip, a 3-minute clip of this exchange.
When you put that letter out, you knew it would do maximum damage to the president, didn't you? The timing, for instance, if you were going to resign because you didn't agree with this war, why didn't you resign when the war started?
Because I was hoping that we would immediately de-escalate and try and get back to the negotiating table.
We would start a war and de-escalate in 3 days?
I was hoping that we were going to do limited strikes, and then limited strikes like we did in Midnight Hammer, and then back off and go back to the negotiating table. Once I realized that was not going to happen, and we were spiraling deeper into this, and we were starting to lose brave men and women in yet another Middle Eastern war driven by the Israeli agenda, that's what led me to resign.
You got a real hate on. You got a real hate on, brother. No, you.
So if you can't understand Joe Kent, he's like, why, Mark Levin, why didn't you resign then before the war? He said, well, I thought that it was going to be like Midnight Hammer in June of 2025, where there's a few airstrikes, no boots on the ground, not a full-fledged war, and maybe the Trump administration could restrain itself. But he says, but then, of course, due to the lobbying of Israel, we are now in a full-fledged war with Israel on behalf of Israel, that this only benefits Israel. And this is why, out of my own conscience, I couldn't support it and I need to resign. And out of that very cordial, reasonable response, Mark Levin, oh my God, you got some hate, my man. You are hateful.
You do. Hold on, Joe. When I had you on my show, I read your texts, I read them out loud, and you've done a 180. Why is that? Because you had access to intelligence or something? Why have you changed completely?
I have not done a 180. I have no problem with us working with Israel. I have a problem with Israel driving our foreign policy in the Middle East as they have done to get us into this war.
Do you have no respect for Donald Trump's agency, that he has the capacity to make these decisions himself?
I have the utmost respect for the president. You can read my letter.
You didn't answer my question. You don't sound like it.
I believe that he was influenced by a media echo chamber and by the Israeli...
Well, maybe he's influenced by your media echo chamber. Or maybe he's influenced by the Saudis and the Qatar. Who knows? He made a decision. Can't you accept the fact that he's a great president, that he took in all this information, he listened to all his advisors, and he made a decision?
See, look, Mark Levin's upset because Joe Kent doesn't agree with Trump. Notice what they're trying to do. It's like, well, you don't agree with Trump? Well, you think Trump's an idiot? You think Trump's just manipulated? You think Trump's a moron? And it's like, well, no, I disagree with Trump on this. I think he's being influenced by the Israeli bubble that surrounds him regarding the neocons and the Zionists. I mean, very reasonable idea, which everybody believes.
You may disagree with it, but why do you create a conspiratorial notion that Israel, 9.5 million people, a tiny economy and everything, dragged the powerful Donald Trump, the United States, into war? Not one. You even had them dragging us into the Iraq war when on the record they said they didn't want to do the Iraq war. They opposed us doing it. Where'd you come up with that one?
In this administration, I watched the Israeli media.
You were there 7 months.
Of the Israeli government. I watched that. I came in day one, and I worked as the DNI's chief of staff until I was confirmed. So,
by the way, does Tulsi Gabbard agree with you?
So what did he say? He said, well, when I came into office on day one as the National Counter Center director, Counterterrorist Center director, I saw Israel propagandize the Trump administration into this war from day one. That's what he just mentioned. And he's already highlighted, he didn't say what was in the classified documents, but Joe Kent in the Tucker Carlson interview highlighted that he saw for a fact Israel create intelligence reports, whether it be Mossad or Shin Bet, send them to the U.S. and have sort of inconclusive results that would make one lead to a conclusion that maybe wasn't actually justified. So they sort of gave intelligence to the U.S. to insinuate things that weren't fully true. He saw that. That's why Dan Bongino freaked out. Remember we showed Dan Bongino freaking out and kept calling Joe Kent a liar? What was Dan Bongino so upset about? He's so upset because Joe Kent highlighted that Israel was manipulating some of the intelligence reports to insinuate false conclusions and get Trump involved in this conflict. That's what they're so upset about.
You have to ask her. But what I did see is I saw the Israeli media echo chamber, and I'm not going to speak for Tulsi Gabbard. What I'm telling you is the red
You're speaking for the president. You said he was convinced by Israel.
That's not speaking for the president. You see what Mark Levin's doing here? Well, does Tulsi Gabbard believe what you believe? He says you'll have to ask Tulsi. I'm not speaking for Tulsi. Well, you're speaking for the president. To say he was influenced by a third party is speaking for the president? Like, absolutely not. This is just asinine, emotional rantings from the Zionist collective in the United States. This group is feeling the hegemon of their control begin to slip away, and they are freaking out. They are absolutely freaking out. This is some wild news. This is, I don't even know what to think about this. Air Force general known as the UFO gatekeeper has vanished, disappeared. Now, along with a handful of other scientists regarding, again, UFO, we've been speculating that there's going to be a UFO release to normalize aliens and UFOs, which is part of a demonic attempt to normalize the idea that these entities are higher, more advanced, but really they're actually demonic spiritual entities. That's the Orthodox perspective. Read Father Spiritum Bailey's The UFO Deception if you want to hear more from an Orthodox perspective on UFOs and aliens and all this different stuff. But he led top secret space weapons program tied to advanced aerospace tech and then gone. And this is days after the UFO files announcement. Now, Trump claims he's going to release the UFO files, right? And it's very strange. Now, if he was the gatekeeper, you know, you got to read between the lines with a lot of this stuff. If he's the gatekeeper, I would believe he probably knows that aliens don't exist. Now, is it possible, the way that they're kind of presenting it is that he knows too much about the aliens and the UFOs, but if he's known as the UFO gatekeeper, what if we take a different angle, he actually knows that it's man-made weapons technology. He knows that these are man-made, UFOs. These unidentified flying objects are actually military craft in some way or another. And that to avoid him potentially combating the alien narrative, that they were actually killed off. Now, is that a possibility? I don't know. But it is very strange because Trump has already said he wants to be the first president to validate the existence of aliens. So here's the Fox News report about it.
Police are searching for a retired Air Force general who vanished in New Mexico. William McCasland went missing last month. Members of Congress are warning this could be a national security issue. The general was involved with the Pentagon's most advanced aerospace research. He oversaw a classified space weapons program. McCasland was in charge of the Air Force Research Lab at a base in Ohio. It's rumored that base holds extraterrestrial debris from the Roswell crash site. The general was tied in with the UFO community. A source told the New York Post the general was a gatekeeper for anything UFO related in the Air Force. He retired due to mental fog, but investigators say he's still highly intelligent and capable. McCasland was an avid hiker. His wife last saw him leaving with a backpack and a .38 revolver. No phone, no glasses. He disappeared 6 days right after Trump announced he was releasing the UFO files. And he's not the only one. 8 months before the general vanished, a rocket scientist who worked under him years ago also went missing. She was hiking in California with 2 other people. They saw her smiling and waving 30 feet behind them. When they turned back again, she was gone, vanished in plain sight. They searched for days and couldn't find any trace of her. This is a very, very strange situation. And 11 days before the general disappeared, another scientist was shot dead on his porch. Carl Grillmar was known for discovering signs of water on a distant planet. He was gunned down in California. Freddie Snyder was later charged with his murder. He has a rap sheet, but was let out of jail by a Newsom-appointed judge weeks before he allegedly killed the scientist. We still don't know his motive. And we don't know if these cases are even connected. But this many top scientists getting killed or going missing in just under a year looks like a major red flag. Police.
So make of that what you will. I don't even know what it means because I don't, as I said, I do not believe in extraterrestrials. There's no bone in my body that is convinced that there are organisms from other planets that exist and have transversed the universe or the solar system to arrive here. I do not believe that whatsoever. So what could all this mean? I'm not even sure. But if there is an agenda to normalize aliens, maybe the people who know that they're not aliens are a threat. I don't know. Next story. This was pretty interesting in Europe that activists burn an epicenter of Israeli weapons industry in Europe. Group Earthquake Faction claims destruction of a factory tied to Elbit system in Czech Republic. They said, "We'll shake the ground under the colonizers, even if an atom's weight of their evil remains will strike it out." So this was apparently someplace in the Czech Republic that Israel had weapons stored up, and they torched the whole place. So, interesting little development. Don't know if you guys saw that in the news, but wanted to bring it to your attention. Next story. This had to do with Patagonia. So we've been following what's going on in Argentina, right? Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, he was an anarchist and libertarian anarchist type political orientation, but he's Jewish. And he is very much obsessed with Israel and Judaism. He's a hardcore Zionist. And he passed a law, we talked about this before, in Argentina that allowed foreign parties to purchase land in Argentina, especially if it was already devastated by potential wild disasters, natural disasters. So wildfires began to emerge in the Patagonia. According to local Argentinians and even Chileans, they claimed that it was Israelis that were setting the Patagonia on fire. Now, interestingly enough, that occurred after this law was passed. Once the land began to become devastated, exactly as people suspected, Israelis began to purchase that land. Again, we were already seeing that they want islands in Greece. Many Jews have fled to Cyprus, and now it seems like they're setting up shop in the Patagonia in Argentina. Well, now we have an Argentinian representative actually speaking out against this. It says Argentina exposes Israeli takeover plan and the government is in on it. Emmanuel Adorni, the Argentine presidential spokesman, just blew the lid on the secret Israeli operation. Israelis are starting huge fires in Argentina to exploit a loophole recently placed by the Zionist government into Argentinian law. Protected, rural, conserved land can now be sold to foreign private entities once a fire passes through it. This means pristine world treasures like the Patagonia lose their legal protection and can be sold to Zionists. Now, this is in Spanish, so I'm not going to play the video for you, but he is, in fact, calling out Israel and the Zionists that are part of this attack. So this is major news because it's exactly what we've all been saying. It's exactly what the locals have been saying. But now we actually have someone in the Argentine government stating it as well. Here is former CIA officer John Kiriakou, who I'm hoping that I can get an interview with here in the near future. I've been following tons of his stuff. This is from a recent interview where he discussed that there are 10,000 documents related to the Kennedy assassination that are never going to be released by Trump because every single one of them points directly at Israel. JFK was actively trying to disrupt Israelis from acquiring nuclear technology. As we've been saying, as many in the conspiratorial tin foil hat world have been already stating about the JFK assassination, John echoes the same sentiments.
So I have a friend who is close to the president, and I said to him at the time that the documents were released, about a year ago, I said, thank God that the president finally released the remaining documents. And he said, no, he didn't. I said, yeah, he did. He was compelled by law. Congress passed a law twice compelling the president to release all documents related to the Kennedy assassination. He said, there are 10,000 documents that are never going to be released. And I said, why? And he said, because every single one of them points directly at Israel. And I said, oh man, that's not one that I was thinking of. He says that the Israelis were so angry that A, John Kennedy wouldn't give them nuclear technology. But more importantly, B, he was actively trying to disrupt the Israelis from acquiring nuclear technology. And they decided they had to take him out.
So basically what we've all believed to be the case is being validated by John according to his sources. And not that we aren't already aware, but just for a refreshment, here's a video of a Chabad Lubavitch member stating that, make no mistake, the threat from Iran is unlike any threat we have faced in the history of our 6,000 years. We're not threatening them. We're not attacking them. It's hatred for no reason. This is Amalek, and Amalek has to be destroyed before the Mashiach comes.
The year that the Messiah is coming, the kingdom of Iran or Persia will rise up against us. And this is all a sign of Mashiach. And what's going to happen then? Mashiach is going to stand on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash, of the temple of the Beis HaMikdash, and it's going to say, Anovim. Anovim means humble ones. Messiah is going to announce, humble ones. Higia Zman Geulaschem. The time for your redemption has arrived. God coordinates all these things in an incredible way. Now, make no mistake, Iran, the threat from Iran is unlike any threat we have faced in the history of our 6,000 years. Every nation, there was a reason they're afraid of us. Iran is 1,500 kilometers away from Israel. We're not threatening them. We're not attacking them. There's nothing.
Israel's not threatening Iran.
It's hatred for no reason. This is Amalek. And Amalek has to be destroyed before Mashiach comes. Moses calls the enemies of the Jews, he calls the enemies of God. Whoever hates a Jew, hates God. The year...
Interesting little bit of information there. So now we're going to start to transition into the Iran war. There's a lot to cover regarding the latest with the Iran war. So smash that like. Let me catch up on some of the super chats. Steve the Turd throws in 10, says, where to start in apologetics? Thanks for what you do. Sorry, one-hand texting. Lord be with you. Well, thank you very much, Steve. Where to start in apologetics? Well, I don't think personally that you can just go from being uninformed to being some great Orthodox apologist overnight. It does take time and study. Where would you start? If I knew nothing and I wanted to get into the defense of Christianity, the first place I would start would be Scripture, reading the New Testament, looking at the theosophies of the Old Testament. That's a big one. Making sure you can combat any sort of Marcionism, disconnection between new and old. The second one is you're going to have to, and you may already know all this stuff, Steve, so forgive me. I'm just going based off the question. Is you need to know Orthodox theology. So reading, getting a really good catechism, right? You really need to know what the church believes and what the church doctrines are. What are the dogmas? What are the distinguishing features between us and Catholics or the Orientals or something like that? And then to do apologetics, again, there's kind of two avenues. Why I think Jay is so great at the debates that he does in his apologetics is because he has both the scripture down and the philosophy, right? I would say that regarding apologetics, you kind of get two different schools. You get the people that really know scripture and are really good at referring back to verses to make their arguments. And then you get people that are really good at the abstract, the philosophy, the categories, the worldviews, the paradigms, the logical inconsistencies of a worldview. And those aren't necessarily the same thing. So I would say begin with scripture and then evolve into getting some type of basic theological, philosophical groundwork. Once you have that, you can begin to fill in the blank space regarding historical information or things you don't know. But I think a scripturally based worldview and then one rooted in Orthodox theology and then adjoined with some type of philosophical understanding would be very beneficial. Wicked Wally throws in 5. Shout out to my brother Wally. He says, Argentina was going bankrupt before they elected Captain Crazy. So I'm sure all of that is just part of the fire sale. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The fire sale. I love that. Wally's always got little clever jokes. So thank you very much, Wally. And guys, help me reach my super chat goal over here on YouTube. We're only at 9 of 30 super chats. Don't make me start grifting. Don't make me hold up the stream hostage. Don't make me do that. Oh, our Irish brother Baron Strawberry just throws in a super chat, throws in 5, says, is there any other nation in the world who could be shamed for saying they are only loyal to their own nation? No, they can't. Only in America. Only in America with our Zionist lobby. Only in America with the Christian Zionist population. Only in America are we so deracinated, rootless, lacking any sort of national identity that we can be gaslit to believe that if you only have a loyalty to the American people and even the U.S. government, despite it being absolutely evil in many regards, I mean, it's essentially the Epstein class, right? I've been using the Epstein class as a moniker to refer to whoever is ruling the U.S. government. I mean, it's not Trump. The Iran war has proven that Trump is not actually fully in control. So who is control? I refer to them as the Epstein class. You can call them globalists. You can call them the global elite. Whoever you want. It's the Epstein class. And so only in America can we be so gaslit to believe that we have to support Israel. Not supporting Israel is anti-American, even though Israel didn't exist until 1948. Somehow America was able to grow, become prosperous, and thrive. But up until 1948, our identity became incredibly linked to Israel. It's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, shout out to Max. Max, God bless you and your brother, man. I hope you guys are doing well. He throws in $2, says, God bless you, bro. Much love. Much love to you, Max. Hope you and the family are doing well, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, guys, we need to get up to at least 15. We need at least 4 more super chats before I can dive into all the Iran news. It took me hours to get all these stories together. Come on. Where's the pay piggies at? Victor Ziegler throws in 10. Thank you so much, bro. He says the Jays are a toothless tiger. If we don't participate in the destruction they set in front of us, all comes down to repentance. No, you're absolutely right. Israel cannot fight this war. That's why they're not even really fighting Iran. We are. Israel's so focused on fighting Lebanon. That's the Israeli main focus. That's where they have boots on the ground. Israel's not sending boots on the ground to Iran. America's doing that. As we're getting ready to get into, the 82nd Airborne's already been deployed. There's about 13,000 U.S. soldiers that are expected to go to the Middle East. It's the U.S. soldiers that are going to die, not Israel. Israeli soldiers are too busy taking the homes of Lebanese Christians in southern Lebanon. That's their main focus. Ortho Yuji throws in 5, says, greetings from the West Coast. Well, greetings, Ortho Yuji. God bless you, bro. And Vigo throws in 2, says, many thanks in Christ. Have a blessed Lent all. Well, blessed Lent to everyone out there. Thank you, guys. Oh, Victor, man, throws in a generous 30 euros. Says, make it rain, pay piggies. That's right. Make it rain, pay piggies. And shout out to my Mexican brother, Disgruntled Docs, throws in 2. God bless you, man. I hope you and the family are doing well. And blessed Lent to you guys. Legitimately. Hope you guys are doing well. God bless you, Disgruntled Docs. Okay. I think we reached the 15, so we can move on now. Let's move on to the next window that I have. I've divided up the windows because I have so many different things. Okay, so here's the window that's just for the Iran war. Oh, Wicked Wally throws in 5, says, I told Andrew I'm picking St. Lawrence, and he laughed. That's actually the reaction I was hoping for, to know I chose correctly. Love you, Wally. God bless you, bro. Really appreciate you and your friendship, man. Okay, so Iran war. What's the latest? What's the news? What's going on? Well, the major news I would have to say is the destabilizing effect this is having on the global energy crisis. This is the major news in my estimation. And you can see here, this is a rolling up-to-date reading of everything going on. Here you can see Israel's already killed over 1,000 people in Lebanon. They've injured 3,000 people since they began. Pakistan is operating as a mediator between Iran and the United States at the moment. If you come down here, those are diplomatic. If you look at the military stuff, you'll see how much damage is occurring to energy infrastructure. So you can see Iran fires fresh ballistic missiles targeting the southern Israeli port city of Eilat. So attacking energy infrastructure in Israel. You can see Saudi Arabia intercepts massive IRGC drone and missile barrage targeting their critical oil and gas facilities, the most critical in Saudi Arabia. Iranian drones strike Kuwait International Airport, fuel tank hit. And so you can see in Fujairah, Iran drone strikes large fire at energy facilities. So you can go through here and see Iran is attacking energy infrastructure over and over and over throughout the Gulf region and Israel. And before we even dive into the details, I just want to refresh everybody. About 1.5 to 2 years ago, I did a stream specifically on Metropolitan Yofatos of Morphu and what he had to say. And this is an interview that he did I think it's in 2023, and it's in Russia. He's doing it with a Russian journalist. Maybe they came to Cyprus. And he's talking about the state of the world and how it relates to the end times. This is just a 1-minute clip. And then shout out to World War News. They posted this on X. Metropolitan Neophytos of Morphu and many Orthodox saints in the past have been predicting an Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear capabilities as a major escalation in the ongoing Third World War. The Economist. Israel has already informed the Americans and governments in the region that its response is inevitable. Its military options include launching drones at Iran and long-range airstrikes on Iran. Now, that was from last year that occurred. Now, here is Metropolitan Neophytos. I'm going to read it because it's in a different language. So it says, that will be a terribly destructive, and in the end, lead to world war. This started, as we said, in Syria, Ukraine, and Israel. After the Jews strike against Iran's nuclear program, then both China and Russia will be forced to react. The prophecies of the saints say this, and note, not only the Greek saints, the Russian saints, the Romanian saints, the Serbian saints say this. They all say that countries will use nuclear weapons. Do you know what the amazing thing is? Putin and China don't want that. The New World Order wants it very, very much. They push them to do this. Putin and China are pressured to do it. So he's talking about, and if you watch that full interview, he goes on to talk about how America is essentially run by Israeli Zionist powers and that it's all one New World Order. Here is a video that was going around. This is Anomaly, the news commentator, rapper. He asked Grok, is this an accurate translation of Grok? Asking what this rabbi, the Israeli rabbi, is saying concerning that the Messiah will return only once Edom, Europe, and Christianity will be totally destroyed. So this is in Hebrew. And then I come down here to Grok, and it says, yes, the translation matches the subtitles and spoken words in the video from Rabbi David Toitu. The Messiah will return only once Edom, Europe, Christianity will be totally destroyed. Edom equals Rome / Europe / Christianity. Link is a traditional symbolic interpretation in some rabbinic sources, Talmud, Midrash, medieval commentators. But this exact apocalyptic take, cheering Islam's role in destroying it to hasten the Messiah, is not common in Israel, according to Grok. No, it is more common than we realize. So, now, the energy crisis. This is the major news that we're seeing around the world right now. And we're seeing, first, it began with the Trump ultimatum. So Sunday night, I was almost going to do a stream, or it was Saturday night. Trump gave Iran a 48-hour ultimatum. He said that you must open the Strait of Hormuz, or that the United States was going to obliterate their entire power grid by bombing all the major power plants in Iran. So that is a major escalation to the potential war. Correct, because that is now going to cause massive civilian casualties because they're not even going to have power. The hospitals aren't going to work. Anything electrical isn't going to work. So he then backtracked on that ultimatum Monday. So Monday night, he was going to have to determine whether he was going to strike the power plants. Well, he claims that he has been in negotiation with Iran and that they are making promising steps towards a potential peace negotiation. The IRGC claims they have no contact with Trump. They don't know what he's talking about, leading to much speculation on who exactly Trump is doing these negotiations with. So Trump then says, we're not going to bomb the power plants. Well, this is obviously to the dismay of Israel because that's what they want is total chaos. So what happens? Israel, along with the U.S., but Israel mostly, then targeted the power facilities of Iran. But because Russia on Sunday came out, Putin said, U.S., do not strike the power plants in Iran, because there's multiple Russian scientists and engineers who work in these power plants for Iran, on behalf of Iran, to get the technology going, to maintain it. And so Putin, after this threat on Saturday night, Sunday, he pulled the Russian scientists out of these plants, and he told the U.S., do not bomb the power plants, because that is going to get us involved in this war, and it's going to escalate things drastically. So Trump, before the ultimatum came up, said, okay, we're not bombing the power plants. We're in negotiation with Iran. What does Israel do? It doesn't bomb the power plant specifically. What they did is they tagged the gas line, the gas pipeline to the power plant in Isfahan. So instead of bombing the power plant, they bombed the gas pipeline to the power plant to give the power plant energy. So again, very, very interesting tactic, right? I'm not going to say what I wanted to say, but interesting tactic. So the U.S.-Israel aggression, this is then the post that came out from the IRGC. The U.S.-Israeli aggression targeted energy facilities in the city of Isfahan, that's southern Iran, in the center of the country, and Khoramashar in the south, and affected the gas supply lines belonging to the power plant in Khoramashar, which led to a complete power outage in the city. Therefore, the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard has decided to respond to all power plants in Israel and the Arabian Gulf. That's why I was showing how active Iran has been at hitting energy infrastructure. It's because Trump said, okay, we're not going to do it. Israel went ahead and did it. So this is what we're looking at. Responding to the outage in Iran bombed infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, causing massive power outages. Here is a video of the U.S.-Israeli strike hitting the gas infrastructure in Isfahan. And you can see that they didn't hit the power plant. They just hit the gas pipeline that powers the power plant. So essentially creating the same scenario that they wanted, but also not violating specifically the demands of Putin. And what does Iran do? Well, they then blow up the oil refinery in Israel. And so you can see this massive explosion here. And this is an Iranian account saying, hey, Grok, is this Israel oil plant? And it says, yes, this video matches footage from the fire at Israel's Bazan oil refinery in Haifa Bay after Iranian missile strikes on March 19th, 20th. Then they hit more infrastructure in Israel. They hit more of the refinery. They also hit a power plant. And then in America, coinciding with all this going on, of course, I'm going to get to Israel bombs a gas station in Lebanon. We see that the Valero Port Arthur refinery in Texas, the largest one in America, is set on fire. Now, we're told this has nothing to do with the Iran war. This has nothing to do with a terrorist attack, but it has to do with some type of sensor that malfunctioned and then caused the part of the refinery to explode. Massive, massive explosion. People heard it miles and miles away. And here, this was an interesting thing regarding it. So within a week, this is a post coming from Saudi Arabia. A Saudi X account reportedly posted a specific threat targeting the Motiva refinery in Port Arthur just 1 hour before the explosion at the nearby Valero facility in the same city. What's even more alarming is the account immediately deleted the post along with 4,739 previous tweets right after the incident. So I thought, yeah, that's probably not real. You come down here to, there should be a post by Grok asking if it's real, and it is. Where is it? Looks like so many people have commented on this. It was the top comment. Grok, is this true? Gosh, this is not the one. I found one that was saying, yes, the deleted tweets. Can you give us more of his deleted tweets? Any threats or predictions there? deleted its full history. So it is true that this Al-Hiba 43 account, Saudi-based, deleted its entire history after posting that one tweet or post about the refinery going to be bombed. Now, many people are speculating that this could be Mossad. This could be a hacking of the computer systems. This could be an internal attempt to take over the electronics and cause the refinery to malfunction. But all of it's happening at a point in which energy is at a premium around the world. And as I'm going to show you next, here's the Israeli Air Force attacking a gas station in southern Lebanon, targeting underground fuel tanks and additional infrastructure linked to Hezbollah's logistical network. Yeah, I'm sure. And at the same time, Iraq slashes oil production by 80%. Storage fills, Strait of Hormuz exports remain blocked by conflict. And then here we have Ukraine. This is all in 1 week, guys. This is all since the last drama alert. Ukraine bombing Russia in the Primorsk oil terminal, Russia's largest Baltic export hub, handling 60% of its maritime oil exports, means that Europe is going to be plunged into dark. And here's another angle of it from another news site. Massive Ukrainian drone strikes destroyed vast areas of Russia's largest oil export terminal, the port of Primorsk, located 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine. The terminal processes 1 to 1.5 million barrels of oil and oil products daily, amounting to 100 million tons annually. So while Russia is raking in millions and millions of dollars, as I told you, they were making estimated around 173 million extra dollars a day. Since the strait has been closed, I forget how many billions of dollars they've actually raked in through oil sales. And then Zelensky, which we know it's not Zelensky, right? We just talked about last week how the MI6 and the one of the major strikes on the military facilities in Russia was done by British missiles and was fired up by Britain and the U.S. So I would imagine, just like this attack, this has Western powers written all over. It's not just Zelensky. It's not just Ukraine. It's amazing how this drone attack was able to be successful with it being 1,000 kilometers away from the front lines of Ukraine. Now, it makes sense if the global elite are dead set on creating a energy crisis. Why would they want that? To lock the world down. I'm going to come to this. You can see that I'm coming to these news articles. This is about an energy crisis lockdown, very much like COVID. We're already seeing the implementation of these set in place. So remember, expect more energy infrastructure to be hit. It seems like this is a plan by something, by somebody around the world. I don't see this as an accident in any way. Breaking: massive fire at an oil refinery in Tabasco, Mexico. 5 dead. Between this war and cartel chaos, Latin America's energy infrastructure is having a brutal month. Australia is running low on fuel. Reports say over 160 gas stations across Victoria have run dry as prices keep climbing. The Hormuz crisis is now hitting petrol dumps down under.
More than 160 petrol stations across Victoria have now run out of fuel. Demand has soared 400%, but the state government insists supply isn't the issue. Panic buying is.
At Energy, Clayton South, diesel tanks are dry.
That's not good for the business.
In Glen Waverley, another Bowser out of order. Those just 2 of 97 stations across Victoria without diesel as of 11 o'clock this morning, unleaded at 83 stations had run out.
It completely depends on the supplier.
We need to understand that these numbers...
Wait. Do Indians own gas stations in Australia as well? So it's not just America.
It depends on the supplier.
We need to understand that these numbers can jump around.
With the government insisting the issue isn't supply, panic buying to blame, like here in Doncaster today.
Demand has increased anywhere between 300% and 400%. At the same time, we know that we have more than enough supply.
Triggering long lines for cheap fuel at Ampol St Kilda, $2.37 for unleaded, now considered a bargain.
My husband said this is the place to come down, and I can't actually afford to fill up my whole car.
I expect it's probably going to get a little bit worse as well.
As the price of petrol continues to soar, households are starting to limit car trips to save on fuel. Some now even changing their shopping habits. As produce prices are pushed higher.
Probably about 25% to 30% increases so far.
It's really sad that people are having to think about this.
Jordan Quinn, 7 News.
So, and I think I have something. I don't know if I pulled it together, but Southeast Asia and India and specifically is getting hit really hard, just like Australia. So we're going to get into how Australia is already talking about energy lockdowns. But here is Iran targeting today. This is today, this morning. Iran was targeting Israeli power plants. Iranian missile reportedly hit the power plant in Israel's Hadera region. And here is the chaos unfolding in India. India is facing severe fuel and gas shortages due to ban on Indian ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Hotels and restaurants shut down due to gas shortages. Several Indians have committed suicide. Now, again, it's the most populated nation in the world, so don't know how many people that is. But here is here's a list of Gulf energy infrastructure damaged in the Iran war, showing you just how much has been damaged and causing this energy crisis. We're not going to read the whole thing, but you can come down here and it begins to talk about all these different gas facilities. And Qatar, UAE, Iran, UAE, Dubai, LNG in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, nuclear plants, Iran, ports, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, Bahrain. So massive, and this article's from today. This was published today. Here's a Wall Street Journal article talking about how the world's energy safety net is buckling. The Iran war has hit every node in the supply chain for liquefied natural gas. Again, just talking about how LNG exports and oil prices are getting ready to skyrocket. And then Ukraine renews attacks on Russian energy sites. What has been hit? Well, we already covered that, talking about how they've hit. This is just the refineries in Russia that have been hit. Saratov Refinery, Ilsky Refinery, Volgorod Refinery, Akhata Refinery, Avpitsky Refinery, ports and tankers, the Baltic Sea, the Primorsk. That was the one that was just hit that I was showing you. Apparently, Monday and Tuesday, they were able to return to some type of operations after the drone attacks. But you can see Russia's energy infrastructure is massively being hit by Ukraine, exacerbating the issue. And here, what is all is culminating towards, this is what it's all culminating towards, is the energy lockdown. The war in Iran didn't just block a shipping lane, it started dismantling the infrastructure the world runs on. So the world's largest LNG plant in Qatar sustained damage from a drone attack more than 2 weeks ago. Qatari Energy Minister Saad Al-Kaabi said afterward the returning to full production would take weeks or months. That was before Israel bombed the South Pars gas field, which Iran shares with Qatar, and Trump denied that the U.S. knew about the plant. Before Iran retaliated by striking energy facilities across Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain, before Qatar Energy warned that damage to its Ras Laffan facility, the plant that normally supplies a fifth of the world's liquefied natural gas, could take 3 to 5 years to fully repair, and that it might have to excuse itself from long-term contract obligations to Italy, Belgium, South Korea, and China before Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned publicly that Iran would show zero restraint if its infrastructure was struck again. And then, of course, Iran retaliated by striking the Haifa oil refinery, Israel's largest, and burned it to the ground. So this is what's happening right now. And we're already seeing people in Australia, New Zealand talk about, like there was a viral video that was going around from Australia of some girl going to the supermarket and there was no produce, nothing. There was bananas, lemons, and pineapples. I would imagine things that can probably be grown in Australia. Those were the only things that I could visibly see in the produce area at this particular grocery store in Australia. And it was talking about how there's already talks about a COVID-like lockdown where you can only drive on certain days. They expect everyone to carpool. They want maximum capacity in vehicles to alleviate the stress on the system by filling up more and more vehicles. And so think about this. We're in 2026. The Great Reset was supposed to be complete by 2030. If you are of the Epstein class and you are trying to reorient and restructure the geopolitical situation on the planet, well, creating an energy crisis might just, in fact, aid you in doing that. So, mind you, the U.S. government is spending $1.6 billion a day in this war with Iran. We remember when we wanted a border wall for $7 billion? They wouldn't give us that. Well, we're spending $1.6 billion a day now. I think we're already over like $60 billion spent in this war so far. Pentagon requesting an additional $200 billion. $200 billion. We now have boots on the ground. 82nd Airborne has been deployed. From what I was reading, I'm going to show you here in a few. SEAL Team 6. Army Rangers, all been deployed. Somewhere around the ballpark of 13,000 soldiers are going to be boots on the ground in the Middle East. 13,000. So think about it. These Western nations are spending billions of dollars on this war. An energy crisis is emerging that is then going to lock down the people of these various nations. It's going to absolutely decimate middle class, lower class, anybody who's poor or middle class is absolutely going to get wrecked by this. Well, it seems like a perfect opportunity to reset the global economic system, don't you think? It seems like it's almost perfectly opportune and set. So not only do we have boots on the ground, but this effective April 20th, 2026, the U.S. Army is increasing the maximum enlistment age from 34 to 42 and eliminating waiver requirements for a single conviction of possession of marijuana. Now, why would the U.S. government expand its enlistment requirements from 34 to 42? Because it wants more soldiers. The U.S. government, if it was planning to end this war in the very near future, would not be doing this because there wouldn't be a necessity for it. But they need more soldiers. They're even going to waive a single conviction of marijuana possession. But think about this. There's already talks of the draft. It sounds like a mandatory draft is going to come back. This is not a war that it doesn't appear that the U.S. is expecting this war to end anytime soon, despite whatever comes out of the mouth of President Trump. So I thought the meme was funny, expanding the age and it showing Tom Cruise in the second Mission Impossible. He says no. So yeah, millennials thinking that we're old enough to not have to be drafted. We may in fact be drafted, because if you're going to institute a draft, I think the first thing you'd want to do is expand the age of enlistment. Breaking orders have just gone out. This was yesterday officially. This has been talks for the last few days, but officially yesterday, orders have just gone out to the elite 82nd Airborne to deploy to the Middle East in support of Operation Epic Fury. President Trump, now remember, we're not at war according to President Trump and the Trump administration. President Trump's Department of War is keeping the operation full steam ahead for maximum leverage over the regime. Quote, orders have been given to the 82nd Airborne to deploy as of now. The commander and his headquarters element, his staff, will leave soon for the Middle East to begin assessing what will be needed once the target is assessed. So check this out.
42 minutes past the hour, this just in. Orders have been given for the 82nd Airborne to deploy. As of now, the commander and his headquarters element, his staff, will leave soon for the Middle East to begin assessing what will be needed once the target is set. So that is the update we have for you right now.
And here, breaking, Trump is making preparations to send nearly 12,000 U.S. soldiers to Iran. The operation is being funded by the Saudi government, UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait. Iran already has 650,000 soldiers and 250,000 paramilitary troops, a total of 2 million troops, forces including reserves. The U.S.-Israel GCC ground operation needs much more than a miracle to succeed. This is a suicide mission, pure and simple. Now, who has the Trump administration been in contact with and doing these negotiations that they've been discussing? Well, apparently, most people are speculating it's this person right here. Unconfirmed reports claim that Iran's parliament speaker, Jalabaf, flew from Tehran to Islamabad with American and Israeli approval. Jalabaf has recently identified by Politico as the White House preferred partner for a post-war arrangement in Iran. Pakistan has been positioning itself as a potential mediator between Washington and Tehran. Now, the interesting thing is the IRGC claims they are not in any conversation with Trump. So what does all this mean? Is this just a one-off person? They think that they could get the support of the Iranian people, and that while we're ramping up with boots on the ground, there's a belief amongst the military elite in the U.S. that we're just going to decimate Iran and then instill this guy, since Pahlavi is not supported at all. The son or grandson of the former Shah from the 1960s, has no support amongst the Iranian people. So is this the puppet that the U.S. and Israel has chosen? We don't really know. But that's what's being speculated right now. Now, this is just a funny AI video of Donald Trump. This is real audio of him. This is not AI audio. This is real audio of him being asked about Cuba. So if you don't know, we have embargoed Cuba so that all of the fuel and energy that is supposed to reach Cuba is essentially being halted by the U.S. government. Cuba then is now in total darkness, as I'm going to show you next. This is what Cuba looks like. So they have no energy, no electricity is even lit. Everything's basically dark except for the 5-star hotel in the very back. You'll see that there's a 5-star hotel that's still lit up right there. That's where people like Hassan Piker, did you see all these leftist progressives that went to Cuba? That's where they were staying. They were staying in the 5-star hotel that still has energy. Meanwhile, that's what the rest of the Cubans live in. And this is caused by the U.S. The U.S. is preventing energy to get to Cuba in an attempt for the U.S. to essentially take Cuba over, is what it sounds like. Cuba went into darkness in 1950. Fair enough. But according to Trump, the U.S. is planning to essentially take Cuba over, and that's what this video is about. This is a real audio of Trump answering a question from Pete Doucette from Fox News.
Peter?
When you say Cuba is next.
Cuba. I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good honor. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I can do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now.
Come on, that was funny. For those listening on the podcast, that was an audio of Donald Trump AI'd as Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. But that was a real response, saying that he'll basically be able to do whatever he wants with Cuba. Now, to be fair and steelman the American position, what America is saying is that some of these oil tankers that were headed towards Cuba were actually filled with potential ballistic missiles targeted for the United States. So we don't know, again, is this some type of psyop or false narrative by the U.S. government? We don't know. But according to them, to give credit where credit is due regarding why they believe they need to do this, it's not just to destroy the energy of Cuba, so they have none. But they're claiming that potentially Hezbollah, Iran, I even heard Russia was putting missiles, potentially even American Patriot missiles that were sent to Ukraine, were somehow being given back to Cuba to potentially fire upon the continental United States. So the U.S. is claiming that this was an existential threat to the United States, and that's why they're doing to Cuba what they're doing. We don't fully know, but it definitely looks like Cuba's getting ready to collapse. Here is a video from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, the Zionist who claimed in 2018 that his goal was to create a global religious war so that he could aid in building the third temple, has no sense of self-awareness. And he begins talking about how Iran is such a backward nation because it invests into missiles and weapons instead of the people, which is exactly what the U.S. government does, right? So listen to Pete Hegseth here. This is such a lack of self-awareness. Everything that Pete Hegseth says here about Iran is absolutely true of the United States of America, right? We have terrible infrastructure. I mean, if you live in a state that gets winter, I guarantee your roads are covered with potholes. At least that's the way it is here in Indiana. I know most Midwestern states and states that get snow coverage, once all that snow melts and the temperature changes, the roads expand, and we have massive potholes. We can't even get bridges rebuilt. We can't get roads paved. We don't even have good health care. Like, our nation is absolutely struggling. People can't buy homes. And we're spending $1.6 billion a day to go to war with Iran. And this is what Pete Hegseth has to say about Iran.
To that point on capabilities, Iran is an energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned embassies and consulates. Unlike previous administrations, we are doubling and tripling down on ensuring that our people, regardless of their Department of War, Department of State, whatever they do, are secure in those facilities. And the best defense is a good offense. And so we're not afraid to go after and kill anybody, and we have a lot of them attempting to target our diplomatic facilities. Iran, we're not surprised that they would indiscriminately target, and we're still seeing that.
Again, saying that Iran doesn't invest in its people. It spends its money on missiles and weapons. Hey, how's that audit been going on for the Pentagon? Remember all those billions of dollars that go missing every year that nobody knows where they exist or what they were used towards? It almost, and I love the point where he says they're led by a radical ideology. Kind of like America is led by a radical ideology known as Zionism. Because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state energy-rich country, could be, should be. Instead, like so many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. That's why you had millions of Iranian. So radical ideology means that they don't invest in the people. What's the radical ideology of the United States? Because they sure as hell aren't invested in their people. I mean, it's total blindness and lack of self-awareness. Here's a bombshell. A former CIA officer confirms the U.S. is deploying its most elite kill squads to the Middle East. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and the 75th Ranger Regiment are all moving into position right now. They are preparing for a massive ground invasion.
Similarly, and if there's some very good open source intelligence sites that we've seen a flow of the special operations commands kind of lead elements, Army's Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the Task Force 160, that's U.S. Special Operations Aviation, 75th Ranger Regiment. They also have been going to the Middle East on C-17s, multiple flights over the last 48 hours. So we're seeing the deployment of what are ground forces. And so I think that's something that, one should take note of, in particular, because in the past when Trump has done this, whether it's the Venezuela operation with Maduro or the initial kickoff in Iran, when he moves military assets, he actually uses them. And in particular, we also have to remember that the Marine Expeditionary Unit, the one coming from the Pacific, that will be on station by Friday. In the area too. So that's another contingent of Marines. So there are ground forces flowing to the region. I think that's really significant. Similarly, and if
So, as already mentioned, but it is eye-opening that if he is accurate, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, 75th Ranger Regiment, as we said, 82nd Airborne already deployed, that in no way, shape, or form, Trump keeps saying that the war is run. I think I even have a video of Hegseth saying that they've already won the war against Iran. Well, then why are we deploying all these soldiers if the war's already run? If we've already annihilated their Navy and their Air Force and their military capabilities, well, what's the whole point of the ramp up? Why is it getting more and more intense? This is noteworthy. I wanted to mention, so I don't know if you guys heard about the missile fired at Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is, in fact, let me go back to my map here. I think I have it. So Diego Garcia is right here. You see this little island in the Indian Ocean? And this is actually a British military base. And Britain has said that they're going to give it back to the people, and they're going to essentially give away their military base, which the United States was upset because we use that. But technically it's owned by the British. Well, we have troops and stuff there. And a missile was fired. Here we go. Oh, gosh dang it. I got to click that red dot. There we go. Diego Garcia, Iranian ballistic missile attack. Now, that's what we were told on day 26, or day 22nd, I'm sorry, that Iran fired a ballistic missile at the military base on Diego Garcia. Now, look how far away that is from Iran. And if Iran did do that, that would mean, just move your circumference here, that they could attack Romania, the Balkans, potentially Italy, maybe Central Europe. Like that's a pretty far distance. Now, Israel is claiming they have these capabilities, and Iran claims they have these capabilities. So that's not a surprise. However, what is the surprise is Iran claimed that they did not fire that missile. Iran has been very open. When they do fire missiles and they destroy things, they say, yeah, we did that. That was us. They claim they did not fire this missile. There are rumors that an Israeli submarine fired the missile at the U.S. British military base at Diego Garcia. Now, this was a rumor, and that was quelled. Mainstream media said, no, it was Iran. Well, here's the interesting thing. If we go back here, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the alliance cannot confirm Israel's claim that these missiles targeting Diego Garcia were Iranian intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, that's really interesting because now the only people claiming that the missile was Iranian is Israel and the United States. And from a friend in Logos Academy last night, we were chatting, he claimed he heard on Chinese news that Chinese news was reporting that they have proof that it was not an Iranian missile because China is helping with Iranian targeting with their ballistic missile capabilities. So China is saying, look, essentially, now we don't know what's true, okay? So this is all alleged, but it appears China's saying, look, that wasn't Iran because we're helping them do their targeting. They're using our intelligence. They did not fire that missile. So why would Israel then do that? Now, we've already talked about how there was Mossad agents arrested in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait that had explosives right at the beginning of this war. Is it that Israel feels that the peace negotiations may be moving forward or any sort of potential? Remember, Israel's killed every single peace negotiator anybody that Iran has used to negotiate with the West has been killed. So I don't even know what to think, but I certainly would not put it past Israel from being the culprit behind this. Would not at all. Okay. Before we get into the next story, let me catch up with everyone real quick. Christopher of Pennsylvania throws in 5, says, today is the beginning of our salvation. Blessed Annunciation feast, everyone. Glory to God. Thank you for leading me to orthodoxy. Greece was liberated. America's next. Well, hopefully. I don't even know how liberated Greece is with the talks that Israel wants to buy up to 40 Greek islands. 40 islands! 40 Greek islands. Yeah, I don't think so. But glory to God, brother. Blessed Annunciation to you. Again, the reason why we're streaming earlier today is pre-sanctified liturgy. I'm going with some of the guys, my wife and I, with some of the guys from our parish. So needed to get the stream in earlier today. So if you are available, go to pre-sanctified liturgy tonight, guys. It's a beautiful service. Steve the Turd throws in another 20. Thank you so much, Steve. He says, thanks for the substantive reply. May a collab between Logos, J, FDA, etc., catechism and apologetics, just a thought. Yeah, I'd be open to hosting something like that. I think that'd be really beneficial for people. Jay's pretty busy. He's been traveling. I saw that Jay was just on the Jesse Lee Peterson show. I'm excited for that episode to drop. Oh, wow. Shout out to the Eschaton Vigil. Wow. The Eschaton Vigil just generously donated $50 in a super chat. Thank you so much, Eschaton Vigil. I know who that is. God bless you, brother. Thank you so much, man, for your support. He says, it is later than we think. And that is absolutely the case. It is much later than we think. Thank you again, Eschaton Vigil, thank you so much, brother, for that support. Really appreciate it. Nathaniel throws in 5, says, do you think that if/when China backstabs Russia in World War III, the latter will be desperate enough to risk using nukes? Do I think Russia will use nukes against China in World War III? I think nukes will probably be used. Maybe they're tactical nukes. I'm not sure. I don't know. From what we understand, Russia is going to be in a very difficult situation. That's why China is going to take advantage of it and allow the West to get behind enemy lines or attack them from a place in which they thought the Chinese would defend. And one way or another, the Chinese are going to backstab Russia, but that's going to cause Russia to be in a very difficult position. I don't know if they use nukes or not. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Steelborn became a Kodo Crew member. Thank you so much, Steelborn. And anybody out there is feeling generous, give some Kodo Crew memberships, guys. I know everyone in the chat appreciates that. 26 Ann throws in 5, says, hope all well and goodness for you all. Father God, be so glorified. Well, thank you very much, Ann. Really appreciate that. Steelborn throws in 10, says, DPH, I've been watching your streams every day for the last 2 weeks at 2x speed. If you don't mind, could you explain the Orthodox understanding of the difference between being prideful and being proud? So being proud about accomplishments, if you are disciplined and you excel, or let's say you become a great athlete and you make the NFL or whatever professional sports league, I think you're justified to be proud about your accomplishments. That is different than being prideful. Prideful would be being arrogant, lacking any sort of humility or the ability to self-reflect and see your own errors. Pridefulness is an elevation of self. You can be humble and still be proud of an accomplishment you had due to the recognition of the work and effort and skill that it took to acquire whatever objective you had. So you can still be humble about yourself and be proud about an accomplishment. Maybe it's about building a house, having a house for your family. I think there's nothing wrong in being proud or feeling satisfied with your accomplishments. Being prideful and being arrogant about it, that's something different. And from the Orthodox spiritual fathers, they always talk about how pride is the mother of all sin. So no matter what sin you are tempted by, it's pride that allows you to engage in that. So pride is something, of course, that we fall with, but I think you can still be proud about yourself or accomplishments without being quote unquote prideful. He follows this up with, also, I wish I had more money to send you. Thank you in my conversion to Orthodoxy. Glory to God, man. I'm humbled I helped in any way. I've been a catechumen for a few months now, and your video on Logos theology was very helpful. Have a blessed Lent. Well, thank you, Steelborn. I'm glad that it helped you in any way. Thank you for the support. Coleman throws in 5, says they waited to drop GTA 6 for this lockdown so that way the masses wouldn't care. That's it's a funny little conspiracy, Coleman. I can see that. Average Redhead became a Coldal Crew member. Gifted a Coldal Crew membership. Thank you so much, Average Redhead, for gifting that. And Austin DeTulio throws in 5, says, thanks for the hard work, brother. Well, thank you, Austin, and for all your support. And my fellow Hoosier sister, Kristen, throws in 2, says, let's get that goal. Thank you so much, Kristen. God bless you, sister. Vigo throws in 2, no comment. Steelborn throws in 2 for the goal. And Ortho Yuji throws in 2 for the goal. I would assume we have reached the goal. So thank you guys so very much for that support. And over on Dono Chat, BJ Ryan says, keep up the good work, DPH. Thank you so much, BJ Ryan. Really appreciate it. And let me just check Streamlabs since we're already going through all of them. Looks like nothing on Streamlabs. Okay, let's get back. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Butte, Montana throws in 5 on Streamlabs and says thanks. Well, thank you very much, Butte, Montana. I will be there in Butte, Montana for Montanica this year. My wife and I are excited to get back to Montana. I love going to Montana. So I'll see whoever Butte, Montana is. Thank you for the support. And I should, if you go to Holy Trinity, I will see you in June. Okay. Now back to our news. This one is quite interesting. So Jewish tourists visiting Wales demolished a landmark cross set in the hillside and used the stones to build a Star of David instead. The incident took place below the Great Orme Summit in Ladudon 6 months ago. So here's a video of Jewish tourists desecrating the Christian cross, that is a landmark image at the site in Wales, to construct a Star of David. Now, that is not going to help their diminishing reputation. Here is something interesting people notice going on Fox News. If you look at the bottom banner, their lower third banner that they use, you'll notice that they have been infusing the American flag with the Israeli Star of David over the red and white stripes, irritating some people as insinuating that America and Israel is one of the same country, which it essentially is. And here is a leaked video of Netanyahu. This was just recently. He says, we are working to bring Iran to places. Now, this is in Hebrew, so I'm not going to play the audio. You wouldn't be able to hear it anyways. But he says, we are working to bring Iran to places it has never been before. What are those places, BB? He says, they will understand that they are below and Jews are above. Wow, that sounds like racial supremacist language. I thought supremacy was bad. All the Zionists in America are telling me such language is absolutely detrimental, if not fascistic, indicative of neo-Nazis. Yet here we have Netanyahu saying that he's going to make sure that the Iranians learn that they are below and the Jews are above. We've already covered that one. Here is Lindsey Graham, the closeted homosexual senator, who is accompanied by his little ladybugs. If you don't know what that is, you just do a quick internet search of Lindsey Graham's ladybugs. I've talked about it before. I am not going to mention it again. But here's Lindsey Graham talking about why we should take Karg Island. Karg Island. Now, what is Karg Island? We've talked about this before. Karg Island is the island that the majority of oil exports go through from Iran. Now, they do not produce oil on Karg Island. Okay, the refineries are in other parts of Iran. The shipments, the distributive network goes through Karg Island. And there is this notion that what the U.S. needs to do next is put boots on the ground and take over Karg Island. But here's the thing. Iran wouldn't care if we did that. One, how do we get there? We have to go through the Straits of Hormuz, which we're afraid to do because they're going to attack one of our carriers. How do we get soldiers onto Karg Island? That's a real question. And then if we did get them on Karg Island, how are they going to defend themselves? Because Iran could just launch ballistic missile onslaught on Karg Island and just wreck our soldiers, our boots on the ground. Sounds like a terrible idea. Most political analysts and military analysts have said, do not try to take over Karg Island. That is going to backfire for the Americans immediately because Iran will just sacrifice the island and kill everyone who's on it. And then we have Lindsey Graham, of course, going on Fox News, taking this stance of why we need to take Karg Island because we did Iwo Jima. We can do this. And Tim Bertrett highlights, we lost 7,000 Marines and 20,000 were wounded in Iwo Jima. That's really what he's going to compare it with. But here's Lindsey Graham.
The brand has been obliterated, and they're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Karg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Is this going to, though, take Karg Island? Is it going to involve U.S. troops on the ground? Let me just read you something from The Atlantic. Does an assessment on that. They say U.S. troops may well take Karg Island. We believe in their ability to do so, but only to endure ballistic missile strikes, drone attacks, petrochemical smoke, all without a reliable means of obtaining logistical support. The result could be a grinding war of attrition. They talk about how far away they would be from resupply.
I'm sort of tired of all this armchair quarterbacking. This has been an amazing military operation. God bless the fallen.
But it's a difference when we talk about troops on the ground.
I trust the Marines, not that guy. I trust DOD. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this. The Marines, my money is always on the Marines. I don't know if you take the island or you blockade the island, but I know this. The day we control that island, this regime, this terrorist regime, has been weakened. It will die on a vine. And here's what I want to do. I want to get with Chris. I want to sprint to peace. As the war winds down, I want peace to ramp up. The reason we don't have Saudi Arabia and Israel making peace is October the 7th, 2023. Iran through Hamas attacked Israel, stopping normal.
Everything goes back to October 7th. Everything goes back to October 7th. Now, did you notice the rhetorical device that Lindsey Graham uses? Anybody who's critical of what's going on, he says, oh, I don't align with that person. I don't align with them. I align with the Marines. Well, do the Marines have a say? Or is it the generals? Is it the military brass, the top brass of the military that makes these decisions? Or is it the U.S. president? Or is it Netanyahu? So he always does this rhetorical device where if you disagree with Lindsey Graham, you're disagreeing with the U.S. military. You're disagreeing with the brave men and women in the U.S. Marines. No, I'm sure if we asked many in the military, they're probably not in favor of this war. You see, he does this thing that if you're critical of the war, or if any analyst says something critical, I don't agree with them. I don't listen to their faction. I'm with the brave men and women of the Marines. Though they're not the ones making these decisions. And this is a terrible, terrible idea, as is everything that Lindsey Graham has ever promoted. I mean, he's an absolute war hawk. He's a total Zionist. He spent more time, think about this. I forget which post I was looking at. It was during, I think, the flooding that happened in North Carolina. But anyway, South Carolina was affected. He's a senator from South Carolina. It was like a 4-month period. He spent more time in Israel than his own home state of South Carolina. And positive news regarding Lindsey Graham, he's got 2 Republican challengers to his Senate seat in South Carolina. And it's actually looking legitimate. There was a report that came out, a poll, that said when South Carolinians were given the voting records of the 3 gentlemen that are vying for the Senate seat in South Carolina, support for Lindsey Graham dropped significantly. And I forget who the other gentleman's name is, but he's basically Trump minus a war with Iran and total devotion towards Zionism, but like border wall, much of the MAGA platform. And so he rose, I think he's at like 27% now. And the poll was saying that after people would ask, Lindsey Graham got the majority of support. And then when the poll began to go through the voting records, support for Lindsey Graham would drop and people would switch their votes to this other guy. So there is hope that Lindsey Graham may be unseated. He may lose his Senate seat. Please, Lord. Please, Lord. That would be fantastic. Fantastic for the U.S. because this guy, he basically just works for Israel.
Normalization. I want to take up and complete what Biden started. As soon as we get Iran defanged so they can never do another October 7th, I want to start up peace talks between Saudi and Israel this year. I want a peace deal between Saudi and Israel normalizing, ending the Arab-Israeli conflict. It's been going on for 2,000 years this year, and you can't do it with a lethal Iran. So we're weeks away from this Iranian regime not having the capability to stop peace.
Okay, very quickly, though, because
So hopefully that is not where the 82nd Airborne is being deployed, but we will find out. This meme I thought was very funny. It's indicative of the Lord of the Rings. If any of you guys watch the Lord of the Rings, you'll know of the king who is in like a aged stupor due to the witchcraft of one of his advisors controlling his mind through magic. And I believe isn't it Aragorn who ends up destroying and breaking the spell, and then the king rejuvenates, it comes back to life. Well, it's kind of making a play on that and insinuating that Jared Kushner is in fact the sorcerer behind Donald Trump. And this meme says, "Israel is our greatest ally, my lord." Anyways, I thought that was pretty funny. Wanted to share it with you guys. Here's a video that captures rampant settler violence in Israel's West Bank. So while Israel is waging war on Christians in southern Lebanon, Israeli settlers are waging war on Christians and Muslims in Bethlehem. So in Israel's West Bank, settlers try to burn families alive in their homes in Bethlehem, reported by the Times of Israel. Counter to the extremist claim, religious fanaticism is a mainstream belief among Orthodox and conservative Jews in Israel. And that's what these videos are. You can see literally just setting people's houses on fire with the hope that they're going to flee their homes and the Israeli settlers will occupy them, just as they did Palestinian homes. Now, this was a major interview. Avram Berg, former speaker of Knesset Speaker of Israel, had an interview with Tucker Carlson in which he had some interesting things to say. One of the which I thought was most interesting had to do with him talking about how they have an order to win no matter what. He says Israel has two strategies: a conventional army ordered to win, never mind what, and a non-conventional capability, meaning nuclear weapons, ordered to win no matter what. So insinuating that Israel's nuclear option is always on the table.
Much troubled by Israel nuking them because Israel has two strategies. Since we, as Jews, we could never compromise with one opinion, so we said, yeah, let's have two opinions. So we have one conventional army that is ordered to win never mind what, and then we have the non-conventional capability, which is ordered to win no matter what. And I believe that every threat yet in the region we can address with conventional power and setting. Yet, if there should be a way out of much troubled by Israel.
So, insinuating that Israel has no problem using potential nuclear weapons. He was pretty straightforward. Now, he is representative of a more critical opposition. He's a minority representative of those that oppose Bibi Netanyahu and the Likud party. So he does bring a more approachable Israeli perspective. He actually, one of the things I really enjoyed from the convo is he said that Israel should go back to the 47, 48, and 69 Israeli borders. Essentially a way to create a two-state solution. But I can never see, so I appreciate him saying that, but does anybody believe that Israel's going to give up the territory that they already occupy? The only way I can see that happening is if Israel gets totally annihilated. Like the IDF, militarily, the whatever infrastructure of Israel, that they just can't respond anymore. I think that is the only time, if they're totally held captive and at the mercy of the world, that's the only way their borders will go back to the way they were, let's say, in the 1960s. I just don't see it happening. And he claims that the Greater Israel Project isn't as popular in Israel as it's portrayed. But how many videos have we played of rabbis? How many videos have we played of Netanyahu? How many videos have we played of people, representatives of the Likud party in the Israeli government? All of them constantly talking about the Greater Israel Project. And here is Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, just said Israel should extend its border all the way to the Litani River deep inside southern Lebanon. He made the call while Israeli troops are bombing bridges and destroying homes in the area. So where is this located? Well, if we go back here to our map, if we go over here to Lebanon, you can see Israel is just absolutely hammering Lebanon. And you see this river right here. This is the Litani River. You see this one that goes across here? This is the Litani River. Israel, which is this area here, right? This is North Israel. They want to take everything from here across here. So where all these Israeli bombings are, they want to take all of this, and they're already claiming of going up to this river. So they want to occupy all of this. That's what's going on in Lebanon. And guess who lives here? Majority Christians. Vast number of Christians. And they've already annexed them. They've already told them that you got to leave. We have no known time in which you're going to be able to return. And already Israel's claiming that is going to be part of Israel. So it's never going to be given back. Here is a UN special report. Francesca Albanese tears apart the question about Israel's right to exist. I thought this was pretty interesting.
Do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
Israel does exist. Israel is a recognized member of the United Nations. Besides this, there is not such a thing in international law like a right of a state to exist. Does Italy has a right to exist? Italy exists. Now, if tomorrow Italy and France want to merge and become Ita France, fine, this is not up to us. What is enshrined in international law is the right of a people to exist. So the state is there, the state of Israel is there, is protected as a member of the United Nations. Does this justify the erasure of another people? Hell no. Not 75 years ago, not 57 years ago, surely not today. Where is the protection of the Palestinian people from erasure, from annexation, from illegal occupation and apartheid? This is what we need to discuss.
Amen. Amen. I'm not a big fan of the United Nations, but I did appreciate that statement. Which one of the ironies is, you know how Israel has, like, the United Nations has asked them to stop the genocide, has deemed war crimes against Israel, all this different stuff, right? And Israel always, it's the U.S. and Israel always goes against the majority of the UN. Well, Israel, because they're getting bombed by Iran, and they're very successful in the bombs that Iran has been implementing, they had then requested aid from the United Nations to declare that there was war crimes of Iran because they used cluster bombs, because they attacked certain infrastructure. Meanwhile, Israel, as I showed you in the last drama alert, literally bombed an entire apartment complex in southern Lebanon without warning. claiming that Hezbollah was in it. But guess who else? Multiple families. They just sent a rocket, hit right at the base of the apartment building, collapsed the whole damn thing. Everybody that was in the building was killed. And Israel has the gall then to request the UN to condemn Iran for cluster bombs. I mean, it's just unreal. Here is a video of a F-15, U.S. F-15 going down over Kuwait, claimed by Iran to have been hit. As we've talked about, there's been a lot of censorship regarding the war, and the U.S. has not clarified whether this was actually hit by Iranian missile or not. But Iran claims it is. You can see the F-15 fall to the earth and eventually explode. Here is the U.S. Air Force bombed the Iraqi army, not the PMF, the Iraqi army. It's officially a world war. Now, I said yesterday, Iraq actually declared war against the United States and Israel. So probably not the best thing to do for them if they didn't want that to happen. But obviously, Israel and the U.S. claims that Hezbollah and some of the Shia proxies of the IRGC operate in Iraq, and that Iraq is essentially vassalage, if you will, of Iran to some degree. So it makes sense. But hey, there's literally a war going on. You declare war against one of or two of the parties, and the next day they bombed your army. I mean, it's kind of expected. I'm not in favor of it, but it's kind of expected. This is from yesterday. So here's Pete Hegseth saying, never in history has a country been defeated as Iran has. We wiped it off the face of the earth, and then it was defeated. Now, imagine this. He says this while the Straits of Hormuz is still closed. So if Iran is wiped off the map, why are we so concerned with the Strait of Hormuz? Why don't we just control it? If Iran is wiped off the map and nobody's been defeated, like Iran's been defeated, why are we sending all these soldiers to the Middle East?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. You're spot on. Never in history has a modern military, Iran had a modern military, a modern navy, a modern air force, modern air defenses, leadership, massive bunker. Never has a modern military been so rapidly and historically obliterated, defeated from day one with overwhelming firepower. The air campaign that we've conducted, that Israel's conducted alongside us, was one for the history books, truly. And it's because we have a president of the United States that when he sends his warfighters out to fight, he unties their hands to actually go out and close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from moment one. And that's why we see ourselves as part of this negotiation as well. We negotiate with bombs. You have a choice as we loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future. The president has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interests of the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not a president who's interested in vague end states. He's been very clear with us about what we need to accomplish, creating the conditions for them never to have a nuclear capability, and that's exactly what we're doing in historic fashion. Thank you, Mr.
But here's the thing. They keep going on about nuclear weapons. Iran never had a nuclear bomb. The Ayatollah, who they killed on day one of this war, stated emphatically that the Iranian nation would not develop nuclear weapons. So this whole thing, this narrative about the war being about nuclear bombs, what are we talking about? Iran didn't have one. Iran didn't plan on getting one. We supposedly bombed their capabilities last summer, June 2025. And we're in March of 2026 at a full-fledged war with Iran, claiming that we won. They're decimated. They're wiped off the earth. And yet we're still ramping up military escalation. What is going on? Like this war is so censored and lied about, it's unreal. And my last story is that U.S.-Israeli strike reported near Iran's. This was tonight. This was this morning when I woke up. Iran's Bashir nuclear reactor raising fear of a potential radiological risk in the Persian Gulf. Kuwait has issued nuclear safety guidance to citizens. Seal windows and doors. Do not leave your home. So that is major, major news. We don't exactly know. Since I've been live, I haven't been able to follow up on this. But that might be that the nuclear fallout due to a U.S.-Israeli bomb today or last night. This was reported this morning. That's crazy. So again, Kuwait telling its citizens, seal windows and doors, do not leave your home due to nuclear safety guidelines. That's where we are at right now. And that's going to wrap up today's drama alert. I'm curious, though, what did we vote on in regards to the new branding of the drama alert? 44% say Logos News. That's what I was leading towards. That's what I was leaning towards. So 44% of you guys said Logos News. I'm surprised the second place is continuing with drama alert. So 699 votes, almost 700 votes. So I think then moving forward, these drama alerts, same strategy, same type of content, I will begin to refer them as Logos News into the future. So these will be the Logos Report. I kind of like that. Logos Report. I kind of like that idea. I'm not against that. Steelborn throws in 2, says, I think that's Israel shut down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Yes, they did. We talked about that considerably in the last stream. Right during Lent. Catholics have Holy Week next week. We have 2 more weeks. War throws in 5, says, years ago I asked you on stream how to become Orthodox and you told me to visit a church. I did, and I've been Orthodox for a few years now. Thanks. Glory to God, brother. Glory to God. You see, you don't have to become Orthodox. You don't have to learn all this stuff online from all of us podcasters and content creators. Just go to a church. Find a priest. Find a community. Start slowly engaging in the Orthodox life and Orthodox materials. It'll come. So glory to God, War. I'm really happy to hear that. And Andre Lopez throws in 5, says, thanks for the awesome streams, DPH. God bless. Well, thank you. Thank you for the support. Josiah Elleron throws in 10. Shout out to Josiah. I didn't see him in the chat today. He said, hi, DPH. I'm not on stream today and won't be on YouTube again till after Pascha, but will support your streams and uploads even in my absence. Well, thank you, Josiah, so much, brother. That is very generous. He's not even in the chat, and he supports the stream. Thank you so much, Josiah. So, anyways, what did... Yeah, surely you know about the King Cyrus Trump billboards. Yeah, I did a whole video. Actually, I have a video here on the YouTube channel talking about how Donald Trump is the new Cyrus the Great. And I talk about the temple coin that was minted in Israel that has Cyrus the Great on one side and Donald Trump on the other. And boy, do I hope that Donald Trump is not Cyrus the Great. What does that even mean? Cyrus the Great was the Persian king that allowed the Jews to return and helped fund the building of the second temple. It's after the first diaspora of the Jews. And Cyrus the Great is venerated. I mean, he has a elevated state among the Jews because of it believed that he was working with God's providence to send the Jews back to the Holy Land to rebuild the temple. And it's believed by many Israelis that Trump is going to do the same thing and allow the rebuilding of the third temple. So I pray that is not the case, but yes, I'm very aware of that. Talk about the flame in the sepulcher. Well, I hope that the holy fire comes this year. I really hope that the holy fire comes this year. We talked about it previously that if it doesn't, the Eschaton Vigil, we talked about this in the Logos Academy. The Eschaton Vigil posted the full context of the quote from Elder Ephraim talking about how the year that the holy fire does not descend is the year of Antichrist. Now, if they have totally barricaded the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is what the article I read claimed, nobody can go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They've already evacuated the monasteries around Jerusalem. If that's the case, who is even going to be there to receive the holy fire? Are they going to let people in? I don't know. I hope they do. I hope they do. I don't want this to be the year of Antichrist. I don't want global energy crisis. I don't want full economic collapse. I just want to get a house and have babies and make streams and read books and write books. That's all I want. I just want to be left alone, as we all do. We just want to be left alone. Does it mention the third temple in our Bibles? It definitely mentions the temple and insinuating a third temple, given that the second temple was destroyed. The fire may come regardless. Well, hopefully it does. Hopefully it does. Babylon's got to fall sometime. Well, it seems like it's falling right now. It definitely feels like this is the end of whatever American empire we once had. I don't know if you guys get this vibe, but I just keep getting like 1470 Rome vibes from the United States. This just feels like the end. I hope it's not. I hope that we're prosperous. I hope that I can just go back to my normal life. But it seems like that is a wishful thought. If it's okay, we have lab 3D printed meat. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Nebuchadnezzar's being humbled. Oh, you guys are hilarious. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for me. As I said, I got 2 other streams to do, hopefully this week. I got one on monasticism, life of a monastic on Mount Athos. It's really going to be focused on Athonite monasticism, the history of Mount Athos, the differences between Orthodox and Western Catholic monasticism. And we're going to be watching some videos on life on Mount Athos. And then I basically put together, I need a little bit more time, but I basically have finished the prep for the sponsor stream on the Crusades from an Orthodox perspective. So I'm trying to get these done this week. The Crusades from an Orthodox perspective, I just need a few more hours to tidy up. And then I need a few more hours to finish the monasticism and Mount Athos streams. But those are the next 2 streams I'm doing. Unless there's major news. There's major news. I got to get those 2 sponsored streams done before we do another drama alert. So that's my goal, is probably tomorrow getting one of those 2 streams done tomorrow evening and maybe another on Saturday or Monday of next week. So that's the goal. But I just want to thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody who super chatted, everybody who's here, liking the stream, commenting in the chat. Thank you all so very much. Shout out to all you guys. Wicked Wally says, Mojo, I'll see you elsewhere on these YouTube streets. Is there anyone live right now? We could raid someone. Do you know is there anybody in our community that's live that I can go dump you guys on? Let's see. Oh, the Crucible's live right now? Andrew went live. All right. I'm going to send you guys all over to the Crucible. Who's he debating? Zach Costello. What happened to Charlie Kirk? Debate against Andrew Wilson. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to send you all over to the Crucible. Make sure to tell the Crucible that the Codal crew sent you. That Dr. DPH sent you guys over to Andrew. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty entertaining debate. So God bless you all. Blessed Lent to you all. And I will see you all tomorrow. No matter what, we're going to be doing a stream tomorrow evening. So I will see you all then. As always, until then, God bless.